Chapter 60. A month quickly passed. During this month, Naruto lived every day to the fullest. During the day, he trained in the morning. In the afternoon, he attended Hwayu's medical class. At night, he practiced ice until he fell asleep. Then, the next day, he would be woken up by Kakashi's electric shock. As punishment, he would make breakfast and sometimes lunch. As for why he knew how to cook and when he learned it, Kakashi would sometimes ask. At this time, Naruto directly threw the blame to his father, whom he had never met before. He said that it was the inheritance of his memory. Then he looked at the recipe and started to think about it when he was bored. Anyway, dead men tell no tales. You can't throw me into the interrogation room just because I know how to cook a few dishes, right? This day, the last day of the month, was also the morning of the last day of the medical class. Kakashi brought Sasuke and Hinata to Naruto's house early in the morning, to scrounge for breakfast. He skillfully pried open Naruto's door lock, and found Naruto on the sofa. Kakashi wrinkled his nose. He smelled the aroma of breakfast, but Naruto was still lying on the sofa. The only explanation was that Naruto was pretending to be asleep. Kakashi didn't call Naruto. The electric arc in his hand flew out and shot directly at Naruto. Just as the electric arc was about to hit Naruto, an ice wall rose from the ground and blocked the electric arc. Then the electric arc was directed away. If one looked carefully, they would find that there was a naked copper wire connected to the ice wall. After the ice wall blocked the electric arc, it turned into water and spread on the ground. It flowed to Kakashi's feet. Kakashi retreated. The water on the ground expanded and separated into mist. In an instant, it turned into snowflakes and drifted to every corner of the house. Kakashi couldn't avoid it. Naturally, snowflakes stuck to his body. Then more and more snowflakes swarmed over, wrapping Kakashi into a snowman. The snowflakes turned into water, and then froze into ice. A lifelike ice sculpture of Kakashi was completed. Naruto jumped up from the sofa and laughed heartily. Teacher Kakashi, I've tolerated you for a long time. At this time, Kakashi's voice came from behind Naruto. Oh, you've been tolerating me for a long time. Oh no. The only explanation for the current situation was that it was only Kakashi's clone that was frozen. Then the real body. ZZ. Arcs of lightning struck Naruto's body, but they didn't cause any damage. Naruto stepped on the bare wires and said proudly with his hands on his waist, "When I'm prepared, your electric shock is useless against me." At this moment, another Kakashi doppelganger walked out of the house next door, holding a three-way plug that only had a ground wire. The metal plugs of the neutral and fire lines were obviously pulled out by someone. Kaka's doppelganger said to Naruto, "What about now?" ZZ. Arcs of lightning flowed through the wires to the bare copper wires under Naruto's feet, and then hit Naruto's body along the icicles. Naruto's body began to dance uncontrollably. It was like an epileptic seizure. At the same time, there was a trembling voice. Ah! A minute later, Naruto, whose hair was smoking, obediently brought the food that had been prepared long ago to the table. He stared at Kakashi with resentment, and cursed him to choke to death on the congee with pork and century egg. At the dining table, Kakashi took off his mask and leisurely enjoyed the dictator's breakfast. At the same time he praised, "Naruto, your ice release has improved again. Have you mastered the secret technique that Naruto 3 taught you?" Naruto bitterly swallowed a mouthful of congee with pork and century egg and replied with resentment, "It's not that simple. That bullshit secret technique requires 2 hands to be able to independently control ice release. Although I can cast the technique with 1 hand now, it's easy to mess it up with 2 hands." Then Kakashi praised Naruto again. "I heard that you also performed very well in the medical ninjutsu class?" Naruto suspiciously asked. "How did you know? Were you secretly spying on me?" Kakashi blew on the hot congee in the spoon. "The medical ninja who taught you went to Naruto 3 several times to ask to transfer you to the medical ninja class. And then Naruto 3 found me." "Huh, there was such a thing?" Naruto asked tentatively. "And then," Kakashi continued, "then I met with the medical ninja." During this period, Naruto had been watching Kakashi. Then he found that when talking about Haniwa-sensei, Kakashi blushed. Naruto looked at Sasuke. The two looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. From Sasuke's eyes, Naruto could confirm that Sasuke also noticed it. Then Hinata. Alas, the girl was concentrating on eating the kanji with pork and century egg made by Naruto. She didn't even look up, so she missed this historic scene. Kakashi suddenly stopped talking. Naruto and Sasuke said at the same time. And then, the tacit understanding between the two made Kakashi alert. He looked up at the two. Sasuke lowered his head as fast as he could and looked at the kanji with pork and century egg in the bowl. He seemed to be hesitating whether to eat the century egg or the meat first. Naruto was in the same position. Kakashi swallowed the lean meat in his mouth. After discussion, you have to work part-time as a medical ninja in the hospital whenever you don't have a mission. You can accumulate experience through practice. However, considering your personal freedom, the minimum requirement is to ensure that your clone is on standby in the hospital during the day. Just a clone? This isn't unacceptable. However, compared to this matter, Naruto and Sasuke were more concerned about Kakashi's blushing. Haniwa-sensei was 1.7 meters tall. With high heels she was 1.75 to 1.8 meters tall. There weren't many people in Woodleaf who could match Haniwa-sensei in height. Kakashi was 1.8 meters tall, which was just right. Should I find an opportunity to set them up? After eating, the team began their team cooperation training. In the afternoon, Naruto and Hinata came to Haniwa-sensei's classroom. Originally, Naruto thought that there wouldn't be any lectures on the last day. For example, everyone could have a meal or something. However, Naruto realized that he had underestimated Haniwa-sensei's medical ninja soul. On the last day, Haniwa-sensei brought the 5 of them to a special retirement center in Woodleaf. They went to visit those who survived the battlefield, but lost the ability to take care of themselves. Some people lost their arms, some had their legs blown off, some had lower limbs, and some had no limbs at all. Disabled, disfigured, deformed. No one here would point and shout at a person who had lost an arm walking past them, nor would they avoid them in disgust because their faces were burned. They were all incomplete people, but they maintained their equality. This was a world with a different aesthetic from the outside world. At the same time, Naruto noticed that no one here didn't know Haniwa-sensei. When they saw Haniwa-sensei here, everyone's faces were filled with an indescribable smile. That kind of gaze was that of an elder looking at a junior, and also the gratitude of a destitute person looking at a savior. The afternoon passed quickly. Haniwa-sensei brought everyone back to the classroom. The 1-month class ends here. I'm very happy that Sandame Naruto-sama can make such a reform. I hope that your existence can reduce the number of casualties on the battlefield. Alright, the medical ninja training class ends here. You can all leave. Also, Naruto, you have to report to the hospital tomorrow. After asking for permission, Sandame Naruto-sama has agreed to add another month of practical classes for you. Naruto was speechless. Chapter 61. The second month after returning from the Snow Country mission, Naruto received a letter from the director of Wind and Cloud Princess. In the letter, he sincerely invited Naruto to shoot a movie with him. There were a lot of unscrupulous words praising him, and Naruto was very happy to read it. But it's impossible to transform from a ninja to a big star, as long as you register as a Woodleaf ninja. Then for the rest of your life, you will be loyal to the village, loyal to Naruto. This is what is written on the ninja archive. Please do it clearly and clearly. Unless you become a traitor ninja, or like Tsunade, become a person with powerful strength and identity. So far, the only Woodleaf ninja who can wander around the world without listening to Woodleaf Naruto's edict is Tsunade. Throwing the letter from the director aside, Naruto went out of the door and walked to the ninja store. Today is the day the store manager will cast a sword for his daughter. Ring ring. Pushing open the door of the ninja store, a bell rang in his ears, and a voice greeted him. Welcome. It's the twin sisters. If I remember correctly, the pink-haired one is the older sister, and the aqua-blue one is the younger sister. Naruto slightly bowed back and said, Hello, where is the store manager? The pink-haired sister explained to Naruto, replying to the guest, the young lady came to Woodleaf today, and the store manager went outside the village to greet her. The younger sister continued. Before the store manager left, he asked us to treat you well. He asked you to wait for him in his office, and there is also his design draft for the sword on the table in the office. Young lady? Are they talking about the store manager's daughter? The first image that came to Naruto's mind was the 4-month-old baby on the store manager's wallet. At the same time, Naruto also noticed the problem with the title. Young lady, is it because the theme is a maid, or has it been used a long time ago? If it's a maid theme, shouldn't these two girls call the store manager master? Naruto realized that this store manager suddenly had a layer of mystery to him. He walked into the store manager's office. Naruto habitually sat in the manager's chair. This was not his first time here. After Naruto officially became the store manager's disciple, he no longer treated the store manager as an outsider. The store manager's office was more than 40 square meters. The style was not as serious as Naruto's office. The black and white floor tiles made the room look like a square chessboard. There were 3 bookshelves in the room, all of which were mounted on the wall. The large bookshelf that was connected to the wall was connected to the wall. The kind that hit the ceiling, very atmospheric. 2 of them were on the left and right sides of the desk, and 1 was behind the chair. The solid wood desk faced the entrance. After Naruto sat down, he picked up an unfolded scroll from the manager's table. It recorded the requirements for the sword forging, the selection of materials, the ratio of each material, and the forging method. Looking at the records was like witnessing the entire process of the sword forging. Naruto paid close attention. The materials included wind essence stone and thunder essence stone. In other words, this sword had to support the wind and thunder essence of chakra. Naruto muttered to himself. It actually needs to support 2 types of chakra. The store manager's daughter. Seems like she can't be underestimated. She's also a ninja? As Naruto muttered, the maid with short blue hair brought a cup of coffee to Naruto. She said to Naruto, Miss is not a ninja, she's a sword master. You can also say that she's a samurai. Naruto politely thanked her. To make Naruto say thank you, even the store manager did not have this kind of treatment. It could be seen that beautiful women could sometimes stimulate the common sense of etiquette in males. In other words, a beautiful and elegant woman could make a man become delicate. Boys were the same. Of course, naughty children were not included. Naruto was puzzled. Sword master? Samurai? Then may I ask, where does your young miss usually live? The maid with short blue hair said. You're the store manager's apprentice. Of course I can tell you. Miss usually stays with the mistress. Mistress? The store manager's wife? Naruto continued to gossip. This miss is your store manager's daughter, right? The maid blinked cutely and thought carefully. Then she said, the mistress said that Miss is definitely her biological daughter. As for whether Mrs. Father is the store manager, I don't know. Pooh. Naruto just drank a mouthful of coffee and spat it out. However, Naruto reacted quickly. He turned his head to the side in time, and did not spit on the cute girl's face. What followed was a violent cough. The girl quickly came to Naruto's side, and helped Naruto massage his back. At the same time, another pink-haired girl ran in and handed Naruto a tissue. Then she saw that Naruto was about to wipe the water on the ground. She quickly said, Let me do this. I'm sorry to have startled you. Naruto shook his head. He raised his hand and the water on the ground gathered together, and turned into a coffee water ball. Then it froze into an ice ball. The twin sisters watched the process of Naruto freezing the coffee into an ice ball. Their eyes were full of excitement. Naruto stopped coughing and barely regained the ability to speak. You did startle me. But what you said just now was a joke, right? The pink-haired sister asked a question and then suddenly realized. Oh, so that's what the mistress said. But Miss is indeed the store manager's daughter. Then the blue-haired sister winked playfully and said, Also, let me tell you a secret. The reason why we are here is actually because we have a mission. The mistress asked us to keep an eye on the store manager. If the store manager has frequent contact with other women, we have to bring the store manager to justice. This is a secret. You can't tell the store manager. Naruto blinked. Oh, but he already knows now. As he spoke, Naruto looked behind the blue-haired girl. The blue-haired girl followed Naruto's gaze and turned her head stiffly. Could it be the store manager is here? However, she did not see anything. She only heard Naruto laughing behind her. The blue-haired girl snorted angrily and then came to the pink-haired sister. The two of them interlocked their fingers and said, "Sister, sister, this customer is bad. The store manager ordered us not to give him the dessert." The pink-haired sister replied, "Sister, sister, you don't have to worry. I've already finished the dessert." The corner of Naruto's mouth twitched. However, just when Naruto thought that the dessert was really gone, the pink-haired sister suddenly conjured a tray in her hand. On the tray were two exquisite pastries. The pink-haired sister said, "These pastries are carefully baked by Summer. Please try them." Summer, the blue-haired maid, turned her head away angrily. Chapter 62. Naruto bit off more than half of the pastry in one bite, and ate one in 2 bites. But he regretted it as soon as he ate it. This pastry was really too delicious. The way he ate the caterpillar bread was a bit of a waste. So when he ate the second one, he was especially careful. But the cake was only so big. For Naruto, 2 bites could only increase to 4 bites at most. This bread is delicious. Naruto praised. The pair of sisters looked at Naruto and blinked, then looked at each other and said, "Sister, sister, do you want to prepare more? The guest seems to have not eaten." "Sister, sister, you go and prepare. The guest seems to have not eaten." Naruto blushed when he heard this. He knew that his table manners scared the 2 lovely girls. But if he could prepare more, it would be good. Well, Naruto still wanted to eat. Naruto touched the back of his head and said insincerely, "If it's too troublesome, there's no need." Xia replied, "It's not troublesome. Because Miss likes to eat sweets, I prepared a lot today. I'll go and get it for you." With that, the blue-haired little girl left. "Right." Naruto pointed to the plate and said, "Just now, how did you make the pastry suddenly appear? It looked like a magic trick." The pink-haired sister opened her sleeve and showed it to Naruto. Naruto instantly understood. It turned out that on the girl's wrist, there was a bandage that stored shurikens. That was a ninja's space storage equipment. Sasuke liked to wear it very much. Because it was very convenient to use on the wrist, he could summon a ninja tool with a hook of his finger. It looked like a magic trick. Naruto was surprised and said, "You are also a ninja?" Then, "Xia is also a ninja?" Haru Sakuratani nodded and said, "Before being a shop assistant, we were the maids of Mississippi recently. Miss has finished her kendo, so we were sent here." Oh no, it seemed that the store manager was not an ordinary small boss. Naruto thought of another thing. In a month's time, Chunin's exam would be held. By then, Woodleaf wouldn't be so peaceful. The store manager's daughter came to the Woodleaf at this time. Hopefully, nothing bad would happen. I'll see how long the store manager's daughter stays at Woodleaf. After eating another 7 or 8 pastries, Naruto finally brought the store manager back. At the same time, he also saw the store manager's daughter. Her chestnut-colored hair was combed into a fishtail hairstyle. Her skin was pure white, and her body looked very thin. Her ice blue cloak was draped over her body, and one could see the edges and corners of her body. Haru Sakuratani and Natsuya Sakuragi simultaneously saluted the newcomer. Naruto was stunned for a moment, before he introduced himself. "Nice to meet you. I'm Uzumaki Naruto." The store manager's daughter nodded slightly. "Kanon Chiba. Nice to meet you. Where's the store manager?" Naruto remembered that the 2 maids seemed to have mentioned. Naruto saw a person smiling at him. This person was somewhat familiar. His silhouette was very similar to the store manager. Naruto subconsciously asked, "This is your brother?" Everyone followed Naruto's line of sight, and saw the so-called brother. The girls couldn't help but laugh. Haru Sakuratani, the pink-haired maid, reminded him. "That's the store manager." Naruto's face was cold. Puffed. Taking a closer look, it was indeed the store manager. His originally messy hair was carefully combed, and his stubble was also cleaned. Because of this, he looked more than 30 years younger. Based on the store manager's current appearance alone, he could be described as handsome. There was also the store manager's attire. Naruto had only seen this kind of attire on Kato before. Kato was the one who hired Zabuza and Haku for the Wave Country mission. In short, after the arrival of his daughter, the store manager felt like he had changed his appearance and become a new person. The store manager was very proud of himself. He straightened his back and said, "How is it? Master, I just need to dress up a little, and I'll be very charming." Naruto nodded seriously and said, "You do look a little bit like a dog." The store manager vomited blood. After a simple introduction, the store manager let Haru Sakuratani and Natsuya Sakuragi take their daughter to rest. Then he quickly changed his clothes and signaled Naruto to follow. They arrived at the stone room at the fastest speed. Naruto joked, "So mysterious. Do you want to give your baby daughter a surprise? Don't you want her to know in advance?" The store manager took out various materials from the storage scroll. "It's her birthday, so I should leave a surprise. How is it? Did you see what I told you to see? What do you think of my design?" Naruto thought about the structure on the scroll. The design is very good, but the materials seem to be used to make two swords. Why does your daughter have two swords? The store manager looked at Naruto in surprise and praised, "Not bad. I deliberately didn't write it clearly on the scroll. I wanted to test you." His guess was confirmed. Naruto continued, "If you want to make two swords, the amount of live steel is too small. You wrote 10 grams on the scroll. If you want to increase it by 4 times, it's best to use 40 grams. Each sword is 20 grams. The store manager hesitated and shook his head. 40 grams is too much a waste. Naruto thought for a while and said, "If you want to save the live steel, you can use the 3 alloys that were decomposed from the broadsword last time. Because those 3 alloys have been fused with live steel, they will be more compatible with the live steel." The store manager nodded thoughtfully. Then he frowned. "In that case, all the shares will have to be calculated again. I'm afraid we can't." Before the store manager finished speaking, Naruto threw the scroll over. The store manager caught it subconsciously and was stunned. "What? Don't tell me, you finished calculating?" Naruto smiled and said, "You were gone for too long. When you had nothing to do and were eating snacks, I had nothing to do, so I calculated it. But even if you use those 3 alloys, you still need at least 20 grams of live steel. My suggestion is to increase it to 30 grams. The reason is the same as my sword. Live steel with cyan pattern steel can increase the ductility." The store manager opened the scroll and looked at it. He asked curiously, "Why are there 2 completely different calculations?" Naruto explained, "This is based on your requirements for dual attributes. You didn't say whether a sword should have dual attributes or one sword should have only one attribute, so I made 2 sets of calculations." The store manager looked at Naruto's head strangely for a long time. Naruto asked curiously, "What are you looking at? Why are you looking at me strangely?" The store manager exclaimed, "Don't you see that your head is much bigger than others? How did you complete such a huge amount of calculations? I used 1 day to do this calculation, but you actually came up with 2 sets of calculations in the time it took to eat pastries. It's a bit shocking." Naruto rolled his eyes. "How can a genius like me with an IQ of 280 be compared to people like you who only have an IQ of 100? 2 plans, which one do you choose? 1 sword with 1 attribute, or both swords with 2 attributes?" Naruto asked casually, but he was actually very concerned about the store manager's answer. 1 sword with 1 attribute would only make Naruto think that the store manager's daughter was good at 2 types of chakra or 2 types of swordsmanship. But if the 2 swords had 2 different attributes, Naruto had to guess that it was a special bloodline limit. Naruto had never heard of a bloodline limit formed by the fusion of wind and thunder. The store manager smiled and said, "1 sword with 1 attribute will do." Phew. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief, but he was also a bit disappointed. Could it be that he was too sensitive after learning the ice evasion bloodline limit? The store manager said, "Naruto is here. Let's start refining the metal." Maybe he was thinking too much. Chapter 63. According to the store manager, Canon Chiba's birthday was in 2 weeks. At that time, the ninja shop would be closed for a while, and her family would go home to celebrate. Hearing this news, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. In that case, he could avoid Chunon's exam. The store manager also suggested that he send another solo mission to Naruto, and then take Naruto to the birthday party. However, Naruto refused because of Chunon's exam. The store manager was a little disappointed. It was obvious that he wanted to invite Naruto. However, he could also understand the importance of Chunon's exam to Naruto, so he made an appointment for the next time. Naruto smiled and agreed, saying that he would go as long as there was no mission. The two swords came out one after another, and Naruto frowned. The weight was not in line with the calculation. The store manager saw Naruto frown and asked, "What's wrong? What's wrong with this sword?" The sword in Naruto's hand was very simple, and it had one thing in common with Naruto's sword, which was that there was no sword case. The store manager said that there was no need for dual swords, and Naruto didn't care. However, this sword had an arc, a very slight arc, and it was very beautiful. Because the materials used were green steel and wind essence stone, the color was very similar to Naruto's green sleeve. Naruto weighed the sword and said, "The weight of this sword is not in line with the calculation." The store manager took the sword and closed his eyes to feel it carefully. Then he weighed it on the scale and compared it to the calculated value. There was an extra 10 grams, and he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "It seems that there was a problem when I cast it." Naruto shook his head. "It's also possible that I made a mistake when I used the materials." The store manager shook his head and said, "It can't be your mistake. You can feel the difference with your hands. How could you use the wrong amount?" There was nothing wrong with this sentence, and it was also what Naruto was puzzled about. The shop owner waved the sword and tested it. Fortunately, the sword wasn't affected too much. It's still within an acceptable range. After that, the matter was left unsettled. After the second sword was forged, Naruto found that the second sword was also slightly heavier. However, because of the situation with the first sword, he did not pay too much attention to it. The second sword was made of thunder-patterned steel. It was light purple in color and looked very elegant. It also had a very small arc. The two swords looked like they were carved from the same mold. The curvature was also exactly the same. Then, the two swords were sheathed and sealed in the scabbards that had been prepared beforehand. The manager was very grateful to Naruto. He patted Naruto's shoulder and said, 30 grams of steel is a lot of wealth. I feel a bit sorry for using it. If you need any help, just tell me. If I can do it, I won't hesitate." Naruto shook his head and said, "I only use 30 grams. There's still 930 grams left. It's not a problem." The manager patted Naruto's shoulder again. He was so grateful that he could not speak. Then the manager took out the remaining steel and handed it to Naruto. "I left Woodleaf this time to celebrate my daughter's birthday. I might not be able to come back for a few months. I'll leave this steel with you first, in case I'm not around when you need it. Also, here are the keys to the shop, the forge, and my house in Woodleaf. If you need anything in the shop, just take it and write it down in a book. You can use the forge as much as you want. There's still plenty of high-temperature coke. You can play with it for a while. Also, my house is very big. When I'm not around, you can take care of it." Naruto was a bit stunned. This bunch of keys was extraordinary. It was almost all of the manager's belongings in Woodleaf. It was handed over to him just like that? Naruto subconsciously wanted to refuse. Deep down, he did not like to owe others and did not like to accept other people's kindness. But the manager interrupted him. "I'm not being polite with you. You don't have to be polite with me. Take it." Naruto finally raised his hand and took it. Naruto had been to the manager's house before. It was really big. It was built in the suburbs of Woodleaf. It was a standalone villa. There was not only a courtyard in front, but more accurately a huge garden. In addition, there was an underground wine cellar, a winery, and a vineyard. It was extremely luxurious. There was an open-air bath in the backyard. The villa itself had 3 floors. Horses could run in the corridor. That red carpet sigh. Even the oil painting on the wall was not an ordinary imitation. Simply put, Naruto wanted a villa with a front and backyard after going to the manager's house. This time, he directly moved in. How nice. The manager sealed the 2 swords in the scroll and took Naruto home. He had dinner with his daughter. According to the manager, they would be leaving with Leaf tomorrow. When the 2 of them reached home, Canon Chiba was watching Princess of Wind and Cloud while holding a bowl of popcorn. The expression on her face was the same as the one on Hinata's face when she first saw Princess of Wind and Cloud. Clearly, this Canon Chiba had become a fan of Wind and Cloud. Naruto looked at the equipment used to play the movie. He sighed inwardly. What a rich person's life. Such professional equipment was no different from a cinema. After the movie ended, Canon Chiba finally saw Naruto and greeted him. Sorry, I was too engrossed in the movie. I didn't notice you guys coming back. Naruto shook his head. It's fine. I am surprised that Hua-Yin also likes to watch Princess of Wind and Cloud. When Princess of Wind and Cloud was mentioned, Hua-Yin's reserved manner immediately disappeared. Instead, she danced with joy as she chatted with Naruto. The manager took the opportunity to leave while the 2 of them were chatting. As Chiba spoke, she became disappointed again. I wonder when the sequel will be released. I am so frustrated waiting. Naruto smiled. It will be out soon. As far as I know, the filming has already been completed. They are now doing post-production. Chiba was surprised. Is that true? But how did you know? Naruto briefly explained the mission of Snow Country. He said that he was in contact with the director, and that he knew the female lead, Fujifong Shuehue, which was the stage name of Wind and Cloud. When Chiba heard that Naruto had saved Fujifong Shuehue, she was so excited that she almost cried. She repeatedly thanked Naruto for helping her. Then Naruto talked about the director inviting him to act in the movie. Chiba's eyes were already sparkling. Wow. Was that true? Then I will have to get your autograph first. Naruto waved his hand. It is indeed interesting to be a superstar, but I am now a ninja of Wood Leaf. I can't do whatever I want. On the other hand, you are free. Why don't I write a letter to the director and recommend you? When Chiba heard this, she was instantly stunned. She excitedly pointed at herself and said uncertainly, Are you kidding? Can I do it? I am not good at anything except swords and knives. Naruto could see that Chiba was very interested in this. He said with certainty, If you really go on the path to stardom, your swords and knives will be a great advantage. Believe me, as long as you want to go, the director will definitely let you be the female lead. Chiba's face was red with excitement. She said in surprise, Are you serious? Naruto told Naruto about how the director fearlessly held up the camera to record the real battle between the ninjas. Believe me, if the director knew that you're so beautiful and capable, he would have immediately made the decision. Naruto, do you know? The director wanted me to be an actress because he liked my shadow clone. You are different. You have the aura of a goddess. Canon Chiba felt like she was flying in the clouds. Ahem. Let's stop chatting. It's time to eat. When the 2 were happily chatting, the restaurant manager stood at the door and cleared his throat. Chapter 64. After the tea talk, the store manager asked Naruto to stay for the night. He asked Naruto to choose anything except Canon Chiba's room. At the same time, he asked Naruto about the director's character, age, whether he had a wife and children, and so on. In the end, Naruto concluded, Mr. Store Manager, are you worried about the unspoken rules? The store manager was stunned and asked, What do you mean by unspoken rules? Naruto explained, That's what you're worried about. The store manager rubbed his hands embarrassedly and nodded. Yes. Once Chiba decides to do something, even 10 cows can't pull her back. This time, I think she really wants to be an actress, so I'm a little worried. Naruto comforted him. After Chiba's birthday, the 2 swords will be given away. Even if the director has bad intentions, he will become a eunuch. Didn't you say Chiba is very good at swordsmanship? What are you worried about? By the way, I'm curious about something. Mr. Store Manager, why do you call your daughter by her surname? The store manager was stunned by the question. He said embarrassedly, My daughter has her mother's surname. When I met her mother, She didn't allow me to call her by her full name. She said I was a toad who wanted to eat swan meat and was shameless. So I kept calling her Chiba Chiba. Later, when I had a daughter, I called her Little Chiba. When my daughter grew up, her mother asked me to call her by her full name, so Little Chiba became Chiba. It sounds very affectionate. You'll get used to it after a long time. Naruto nodded. Recently, he was more and more curious about the store manager, Naruto. At first, he thought he was just a half-baked swordsmith who didn't have good swordsmithing skills and relied on the manuscripts passed down by his father. He opened a ninja store and lived a comfortable life. But recently, the more he learned about him, the more unusual he felt. The store manager also started to talk. Actually, when I was young, I also wanted to be a big star. At that time, I was a poor boy who wanted to make money all day. There's money to be made as a celebrity, and it's not dangerous. How great is that? But in the end, he didn't become a superstar and became a mercenary. At that time, all the countries were at war. Ordinary people didn't feel anything. Those who died were all ninjas. I was hired continuously until I met your master's wife. As the store manager talked about the past, Naruto listened obediently. Unknowingly, a few hours had passed. Naruto's vision suddenly blurred, and he was confused for a moment. The store manager saw it and asked, "Did I say too much? Are you sleepy?" Naruto waved his hand and shook his head. It took him a while to recover from the dizziness before he replied, "My clone has been working in the hospital on my behalf for the whole day. I just got off work. After removing my clone, I received a lot of information, and it made me dizzy." The shopkeeper was stunned and said in disbelief, "You let your clone replace you?" Naruto came back to his senses and nodded. The store manager maintained his original expression and continued to ask in disbelief, "One replacement for a whole day?" Naruto nodded. "Yes. What's wrong?" The store manager only spat out 2 words, "Monster." "Don't tell me you've been doing this every day for the past half a month." Naruto asked in a daze. "What's wrong with that? If I didn't do this, how would I have so much free time?" The store manager spat out 2 words again, "Pervert." Naruto rolled his eyes and understood what the store manager meant. He said arrogantly, "You're just jealous of me, Chakra. Jealousy makes people ugly. Store manager, you just became handsome. Don't go back to being a wretched uncle." The store manager also rolled his eyes and said, "I'm handsome. I don't care about my appearance. What wretched? Do you know how to use words? I suspect your vocabulary is lacking." The 2 of them chatted for a while, and the store manager finally got up and was about to leave. Before leaving, he said, "This is your home. You can walk around wherever you want. Don't be too restrained. Of course, don't be too casual. You're absolutely not allowed to go to Chinya's room." Naruto rolled his eyes and didn't bother to talk to the store manager. He waved his hand and asked him to leave. Unexpectedly, after the store manager left, he turned his head and said, "Even if that girl asks you to go, you can't go." Naruto was stunned and said in disbelief, "Ask me to go? Is that possible?" The store manager added, "Of course, I'm not asking you to go because of something bad. I'm afraid that girl doesn't have any gender awareness and wants to chat with you in the room. She's very interested in becoming a star, so she'll probably want to chat with you." Naruto blinked and said suspiciously, "Is that why you've been talking about life in my room for hours?" The store manager couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He subconsciously touched the stubble on his chin that was no longer there. Then he changed the topic and said, "I suddenly remembered that I still have something to do. Well, go to bed early. I'm leaving." Naruto, Motherf ***. After the store manager left, it was already 10 o'clock. Sleep? Naruto felt that it was still too early. He decided to cultivate for an hour or 2. However, after condensing the icicle in his hand, Naruto was a little worried. This wasn't his home. If he didn't control it well, the icicle would shoot out again and turn this house into a hornet's nest. That would be hilarious. Then sleep? Naruto lay down. The bed was very comfortable. The quilt was newly dried and filled with the smell of sunshine. However, after talking with the store manager for so long, he was very excited. It was a little difficult to fall asleep directly. He tossed and turned on the bed several times but still couldn't fall asleep. Finally, Naruto sat up and decided to cultivate in the building's training room. The walls of the store manager's training room were welded with 10-centimeter thick iron plates. Even if he could shoot an icicle at the wall, it was absolutely impossible for him to shoot a hole in the wall at this stage. That place was just right for him. Out of the door, Naruto walked in the corridor where horses could run. Naruto compared the corridor with his home. The result was that this corridor was 5 or 6 times the size of his home. He couldn't help but think of a sentence. Do you really think that rich people are as happy as you imagine? You're wrong. The happiness of rich people isn't as happy as you imagine. Their happiness is something you can't imagine at all. After walking down the corridor for a minute, Naruto finally arrived at the door of the training room. Unexpectedly, the lights in the training room were on and he could vaguely hear some sounds. Someone was cultivating in the training room. Who was it? The store manager? It shouldn't be. Then the store manager's daughter? Naruto's curiosity rose. He pushed the door open and walked in. He was surprised to see the people inside. It turned out to be the maid sisters. At this time, the two of them were wearing training clothes and holding bamboo swords in their hands. They were fighting. Their attacks were very fierce and fast. With a slash, the two swords intersected. A dull collision sound was like two big hammers that were used to forge swords colliding with each other. Dang! The sound was so loud that it made people dizzy. This wasn't the sound of an ordinary bamboo sword at all. Naruto smacked his lips and murmured, "The strength of these two girls might not lose to me." The two of them noticed Naruto and stopped. The girl with aqua blue hair smiled at Naruto and said, "Customer, you're really diligent. It's so late and you're still in the training room. Do you want to spar a few times? We heard from the store manager that you also know how to use a sword." Spar a few times? Naruto was a little tempted. It wasn't that he wanted to test the strength of the two girls, but Naruto could see that the two girls were much stronger than him in terms of swordsmanship. This was a very good learning opportunity. Naruto scratched his head. "My swordsmanship is very bad. I hope you won't laugh at me." The pink-haired sister walked over and offered the bamboo sword in her hand with both hands. "Customer, you can use my sword." Naruto accepted it with both hands. It was out of politeness, but when the sword was in his hand, he couldn't help but feel lucky. Fortunately, he was holding it with both hands. Otherwise, the weight of the sword would have dislocated his arm. The pink-haired sister saw that Naruto was almost flipped over by the sword, and quickly raised her hand to press on the sword. She apologized. "Sorry, I forgot to take back chakra." The bamboo sword suddenly became lighter when the girl's fingers pressed on it. Naruto also understood that this bamboo sword most likely had the same function as the hammer that the store manager gave him. It could be used to change the weight by injecting chakra. After taking back chakra, the pink-haired sister bowed and apologized. "It's my negligence. I'm really sorry." The moment he lowered his head, Naruto accidentally glanced along the collar. He didn't see anything that he shouldn't have. The girl's training clothes had a vest. The style of the vest was very familiar to Naruto. It was the vest that could be loaded with special heavy metals. Chapter 65. 10 minutes after fighting with Natsuya Sakuragi, sweat slowly flowed down the outline of Naruto's face. His heavy breathing was like a bellows, panting heavily. Although he still held the wooden sword tightly in his hand, it was no longer stable. On the other side, Natsuya Sakuragi's aura was calm and her eyes were sharp. Her breathing was slow and long, silent. There was a sense of horror in the tranquility. Why did the store manager have such a little monster under his command? Naruto's heart was not calm at all. Although he had expected to lose before the fight, this was a sword competition after all. After all, Naruto had only just come into contact with the way of the sword. However, from the initial probing attack being sent flying, to chakra erupting with all her strength, Naruto was being crushed from beginning to end. His opponent was like a spring. The more power Naruto exerted, the greater the rebound force. In this situation, Naruto even wanted to use the 8 inner hidden gates. During these 5 seconds, Natsuya Sakuragi did not take the initiative to attack. Naruto took a breath, and the bamboo blade in his hand gradually stabilized. His breathing slowed down. He took a deep breath, sprinted, and slashed. It was a fierce attack, fast and explosive. Haru Sakuratani raised her sword to meet it. The two bamboo swords slashed together, competing with each other. Naruto's blood vessels expanded, and his muscles bulged like tight springs. He tried his best to squeeze out all his strength. But on the other side, Natsuya Sakuragi's slender body did not fluctuate much. She calmly contended with Naruto. Then, she suddenly slashed out with her sword and sent Naruto flying again. Naruto's breathing rhythm was broken again. His sweat flowed down his body, and his clothes were already soaked. Natsuya Sakuragi stopped and said seriously, "Let's stop here for now. Customer, you've been using brute force from beginning to end. There's no technique to speak of. Plus, there's no rhythm to the battle and your battle awareness is weak." Seeing that Naruto's face was getting darker and darker, Natsuya Sakuragi's serious face suddenly turned into a cute smile as she encouraged, "But it's still pretty good for beginners." Naruto took a deep breath and said seriously, "Let's do it again. This time, I'll use all my strength." Naruto decided to try using the 8 inner hidden gates. Natsuya Sakuragi looked at Naruto's sweaty appearance and shook her head. "Sir, you have already used all." Naruto shook his head and said seriously, "What comes next is my true full strength. The first gate of the 8 inner hidden gates, gate of opening, gate of opening." The moment the first gate of the 8 inner hidden gates opened, the restriction on the brain was lifted. His field of vision suddenly widened, and his eyes lit up. Naruto's hearing increased exponentially, and he could even hear his own heartbeat. But this time using the 8 inner hidden gates was much faster than the first time. 2 seconds later, the light in front of him was no longer dazzling, and the sound of his heartbeat gradually disappeared. Only the things in front of him became clear, and he became more sensitive to the sounds outside. Natsuya Sakuragi sensed some changes, and her expression became serious. Naruto said, "Come on." He used chakra, started and sprinted. The unrestrained chakra was like a runaway wild horse, and all her strength was poured into her legs. The soles of her feet stepped on the ground. With a muffled sound, Naruto shot out like an arrow from a bow. His speed was 5 times faster than before. His sword moved from the bottom left to the top right, and he used his body's speed to slash up. Clang! Under this blow, Natsuya Sakuragi took a step back. But soon, Naruto discovered that it wasn't him who pushed her back, but his opponent who took the initiative to step back and use her body to reduce the force. The two swords rubbed against each other, and slid away from each other. The two brushed past each other and changed positions. Naruto felt that his attack had hit cotton. At this time, Natsuya Sakuragi carefully observed Naruto, and she was somewhat puzzled as to why Naruto's speed and strength had suddenly increased. Did he remove the weight? From the beginning, she had asked Naruto to remove the weight, but Naruto didn't remove it because she didn't want to. She carefully observed Naruto's body movements, and found that they weren't smooth. They rose slowly and fell quickly, which was a sign that the weight was still on his body. Natsuya Sakuragi became serious. "Although I don't know what happened, you are indeed stronger now." Then the two of them began to fight. The rhythm of their attacks became faster and faster, and their momentum gradually resembled the previous battle between the two sisters. Half an hour later, Naruto's physical strength was exhausted, and he finally fell to the ground. When Naruto was about to get up, Natsuya Sakuragi threw away the sword in her hand. "Let's stop here. Although I don't know what method you used to increase your strength, your body has already reached its limit. I can't watch my guest hurt himself." Naruto lowered his head and was silent. Natsuya Sakuragi thought that Naruto had suffered a blow, so she went into coaxing mode. "How about I prepare some delicious pastries for you tomorrow?" Naruto rolled his eyes and threw the bamboo sword to the side. At the same time, he removed the state of the 8 inner hidden gates. The moment he removed it, Naruto's body, which had just struggled to sit up, fell down again. He wanted to get up again, but he couldn't do it. He had lost control of his muscles. This was a sign of exhaustion. Haru Sakuratani came to Naruto's side and checked Naruto's physical condition. She blamed the two of them. You didn't control your strength. What nonsense. Natsuya Sakuragi pouted. It's my fault. How about sending him to the hospital? Let the medical ninja treat Naruto. Medical ninja? This reminded Naruto. Naruto smiled and said, the medical ninja will be here soon. Wait, I'll show you a trick. Then he squeezed the little strength that his body had just recovered and raised his hands. His hands moved to his chest and crossed his fingers. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. Bang. Bang. 2 Naruto clones appeared beside Naruto. Then Naruto's clone said to Haru Sakuratani and Sia, stay away. The patient needs enough oxygen. Then the 2 of them gathered chakra in their hands and used the immortal palm technique to treat Naruto's body. Natsuya Sakuragi and Haru Sakuratani opened their mouths wide. The 2 of them looked at each other and said in surprise, there's such a thing. Our guest knows medical ninjutsu? This was indeed very powerful. 5 minutes later, a lively Naruto stood up again. The 2 clones bowed to the Sakuratani sisters very politely, and then disappeared. This was a habit that he had developed in the hospital. Natsuya Sakuragi's eyes were filled with little stars of worship. She sighed and said, do you want to continue sparring? Naruto regained his senses and replied, I've already realized the difference between us, so I won't mess around anymore. Although medical ninjutsu can help me recover, my body needs to rest and recuperate. Otherwise, my cells won't be able to bear the burden and will start dividing again, which will shorten my lifespan. The Sakuratani sisters nodded as if they understood. Natsuya Sakuragi said with some admiration, but you're so amazing. You know ice release and medical ninjutsu. If you really go all out, I might not be your opponent. Naruto smiled bitterly. Forget it. Tell me how much weight you're carrying first. Natsuya Sakuragi chuckled embarrassedly, then raised her hand and gestured a number. At first, she gestured with 2 fingers, but when her sister secretly glared at her, she retracted one of her fingers and only gestured 1. Natsuya Sakuragi. Because of our special physiques, we're naturally stronger than ordinary people. But I believe that our guest is so amazing that he'll soon surpass us. Naruto's mind was thinking about the unit after 1. By the way, how's your milady's strength compared to yours? Natsuya Sakuragi shook her head like a rattle drum and hurriedly said, I can't compare to milady at all. Milady can beat me just like I can beat you. Naruto. This comparison shocked and saddened Naruto. Chapter 66. The exhaustion caused by using the Hashiman Tanku allowed Naruto to sleep peacefully that night. No one came to disturb him at night. The next day, Tian, Naruto woke up with a stretch and used the shadow clone technique in a daze. Then he opened his eyes in a daze and saw that the clone had left, so he fell asleep again. Needless to say, the clone had gone to the hospital for an internship. However, what Naruto didn't expect was that the clone would meet Kakashi in the hospital. No, to be precise, Kakashi went to the hospital to find Naruto. In the hospital, Kakashi called out to Naruto, I didn't expect you to be so diligent now. I went to your house early this morning to look for you, but I found that you had already left. Naruto's clone bowed and said, What's the matter? Kakashi looked up and down at Naruto's clone. At this time, Naruto gave him the feeling that he had matured a lot. He did things by the book and had the self-discipline of a medical ninja, but Kakashi always felt that this didn't conform to Naruto's style, so he exploded. Naruto, is this a clone? The clone was very honest and nodded. Yes, is there a problem? Kakashi's smiling expression instantly turned into a dead fish's eyes. No problem. I came to you today because I have something to tell you. I want you to return to the team. Okay, I will tell Hana about your matter. You can tell this news to the main body. The rendezvous point is at the usual place. However, the clone stood still and said, I can't leave until Hana-sensei says it's time to get off work. Kakashi stared at Naruto's clone with dead fish eyes. Is this a death order? The clone replied seriously, Death order. Kakashi rolled his eyes and gathered the thunder attribute chakra in his hand. The simplified version of Chidori directly pierced through Naruto's clone's chest. Naruto's clone stared blankly at Kakashi. Then with a bang, it disappeared. Kakashi clapped his hands and said, "How simple. You can go back like this." At the same time, Naruto, who was still lazing in bed, was awakened by the sharp pain in his chest. After skimming through the messages sent by his doppelganger, Naruto crawled out of bed weakly. Looks like the good days are coming to an end. After a simple freshening up, Naruto was about to pick up the key and leave when he raised his hand and pulled it back. The store manager was kind to him, and he lived quite comfortably here. But if he continued to live here, he would inevitably cause trouble for the store manager. After all, there were many people watching him in the wood leaf. Let's just assume that I've fallen here. Naruto smiled, put on his clothes and left the house. Before leaving, he naturally had to say goodbye to the store manager, because the store manager and the others were also leaving the wood leaf today. "Sorry, the captain told me to go back to the team. I can't see you off." The store manager waved his hand indifferently. "This is a small matter. Your Chunin exam is a big deal." When Kanon Chiba heard that Naruto was leaving, she reminded him, That, you said you would introduce me to that director. Don't forget." Naruto smiled and took out a letter. "I wrote the letter last night. You just need to add a photo of yourself and send it out. It's more or less done." Hana took the letter from Naruto's hand. Her face was red from happiness, and she looked very cute. She asked, "Can I take a look at this letter?" Naruto nodded. "Of course. You can add anything you want." The letter was opened. The first part was about Naruto rejecting the director's invitation. He expressed that he was now a woodleaf ninja and could not become an actor. Then, he introduced Kanon Chiba to the director. In the letter, he described that Hana's beauty was not inferior to Princess Snowflake. She had excellent sword skills and she loved movies. She was a very promising candidate. After reading it, Kanon Chiba's beautiful eyes lit up. She was in high spirits and she bowed deeply to Naruto. However, Naruto avoided her. Naruto said modestly, "It's just a small matter. You don't have to be so formal. Just treat it as an early birthday present for Senior Hana." Kanon Chiba was very happy. She held the letter in her hands like it was a treasure and praised, "This is the best present I've received this year. No other." The best present? Naruto secretly looked at the store manager. The store manager's face was already dark. Obviously, in the store manager's heart, the best present should be prepared by him. However, if he thought about it carefully, even in that present, Naruto seemed to have put in a lot of effort. Naruto waved goodbye and said, "Okay, I should go. Otherwise, my captain will call me again. See you next time." Kanon Chiba invited him before leaving. "I'll let it go this time. Next time you must come to Hana's birthday." Naruto nodded with a smile. "Wait. Guess, you forgot your key." Natsuya Sakuragi ran over with the key. Naruto was dumbfounded. This time, the store manager scolded, "Take the key with you. It's fine if you leave it at home, but if you leave the key outside, I'll let you have a taste of your ass the next time we meet." Should he take it or not? The store manager looked at him. Kanon Chiba looked at him. Natsuya Sakuragi and Haru Sakuratani, who was standing a little further away, were also looking at him. Naruto sighed in his heart and raised his hand to take it. "Ah, I got it." After Naruto left, Kanon Chiba asked Natsuya Sakuragi, "Last night you said that Naruto's swordsmanship is terrible?" Natsuya Sakuragi replied, Yes. He only relies on brute force to forge a sword. It feels like he's waving a hammer." Hearing this comparison, Kanon Chiba chuckled. Natsuya Sakuragi was puzzled. "Why are you asking this, Missy?" Kanon Chiba smiled. "He gave me such a good birthday present. I'm thinking of what to give him in return." The rest of Class 7 had already gathered. They were all waiting for Naruto. When Naruto arrived, Kakashi looked at Naruto with dead fish eyes. "I hope your internship at the hospital for more than half a month didn't affect your training." Naruto promised, "I definitely didn't slack off at all." Then he asked, "Teacher Kakashi, after more than half a month, have you finished fusing your bloodline limit?" Kakashi's face darkened. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence. "Soon." Then he changed the topic. I gathered all of you today to inform you of something. The third generation has set the date for Chunan's exam. It's tomorrow. Kakashi took out 3 palm-sized pieces of paper and handed them to the 3 of them. This is the application form. Sign your name on it and hand it to the school's room 301 before 4 o'clock tomorrow. Naruto blinked his eyes and glanced at the application form. That this isn't compulsory, if I don't sign. Kakashi turned his head. Electric arcs jumped on his hands. Naruto's face darkened. Okay, I will sign it. Kakashi smiled and turned to do his own thing. Naruto saw that Kakashi was trying to fuse the 2 chakra attributes again. He quietly went to the corner and habitually held the shovel, planning to dig a hole. Kakashi's veins throbbed on his forehead. He suddenly turned again and shouted at Naruto, who was about to dig a hole with the shovel. I can't cause an explosion now. Naruto slowly put down the shovel and carefully replied. Oh, Kakashi turned around. Naruto turned back and whispered to Sasuke and Hinata, really? Sasuke jumped directly onto a big tree. Hinata explained, although there won't be an explosion, there will occasionally be a flood or something. As they were talking, a wave suddenly hit them. On purpose. It was definitely on purpose. Naruto raised his hand and Chakra's ice attribute changed. The wave directly turned into an ice wall. He said disdainfully, that's it? I just happened to be his nemesis. Then he jumped and proudly jumped onto the ice wall. But he didn't expect that the ice was electrified. After standing on it, he lost control of his body and slid down along the beautiful arc formed by the wave. He slid directly to Kakashi's feet. Kakashi grinned. You're my nemesis? ZZ. Electric arcs flowed on Kakashi's body. Naruto shook his head. He wanted to admit defeat and beg for mercy. But when the words were about to come out of his mouth, they were changed by the electric current. Chapter 67. On the day of Chunan's exam. On a big tree far away from the school, Hinata, Naruto, and Sasuke sat in a row. Hinata looked at the time and said, Hey, Naruto-kun, it's already 3:30. Do we still have to wait? Naruto lazily looked up at the sky and said, It's troublesome to go early. It's good to go on time. Let's go at 3:50. Hinata nodded obediently. Oh. The wind blew gently, and the leaves rustled. Time passed quietly between the swaying shadows of the trees. Naruto looked at the clouds in the sky and asked Sasuke, Hey Sasuke, for you, if there was a way to quickly improve your strength in front of you, would you give it up? Sasuke was resting with his eyes closed. When he heard Naruto's question, he opened his eyes. Looking into the distance, he answered directly without thinking. For me, improving my strength is everything. Naruto looked at the clouds in the sky changing shape. The clouds gradually became longer under the blowing of the wind, twisting and turning like a big snake. Sasuke will eventually go to Orochimaru's place. Yesterday, Kakashi seemed to have said that he had nothing to teach Sasuke. Then Hinata reported the time. Naruto-kun, it's 3:50. Naruto took a deep breath and said, Then let's go. The fastest way is to enter directly from the outside. Enter from the outside? Under Naruto's lead, the 3 of them didn't go through the main entrance. Instead, they climbed directly along the wall to the 3rd floor of the ninja school, and climbed in through the window. This gorgeous entrance attracted a lot of attention as soon as they entered the room. More than half of the 100 people in the room looked over. Being stared at by so many people, Hinata blushed and hid behind Naruto. In the crowd, Pocket also saw the 3 people here and recognized Naruto and Sasuke. He was about to walk over when it was exactly 4 o'clock. Pung! Smoke curled up and more than 10 examiners appeared from the smoke. You must be tired of waiting. My name is Marino Ibiki. I'm the invigilator for Chunan's first exam. He was tall and muscular, wearing a black windbreaker, black gloves, and a black headscarf. His entire body was almost enveloped in darkness. There was a scar on his face that stretched from the upper left corner to the lower right corner. The moment this invigilator appeared, an invisible pressure enveloped the entire examination hall. Behind him, there were more than 10 examiners standing in a dark mass with a playful look on their faces. All right, let's begin Chunan's first exam. First, hand in your application form in order, then receive your number plate, and sit in the corresponding position. The written exam papers will be distributed after you are done. The crowd began to line up to receive their number plates. Naruto took this opportunity to observe the ninjas who were taking the exam. Most of them were wearing wood leaf forehead protectors, but he had never seen them before. They should be genin who had accumulated over the years. Naruto's gaze swept across these people's faces casually, and then began to look for a target. Someone was looking at him? Not at him, but at Hinata. That person had long and straight black hair, fair skin, and a slender figure. However, it was not Shueishue's good girl, but Shueishue's good man, Hinata's cousin Hinata Ninji. Naruto smiled and waved at that person. This was his future brother-in-law. That person had delicate features. When he saw Naruto, he frowned, and then turned his head away with a disgusted look. Hinata noticed that Naruto was greeting others, so she followed Naruto's gaze and saw Hinata Ninji. Her expression suddenly became a little depressed and nervous. Ninji Nisan. Naruto raised his hand and patted Hinata's shoulder, whispering, "Are you afraid of that person? Do you need me to teach him a lesson?" Hinata quickly shook her head and whispered, "No, that person is my Nisan brother. He's very powerful." Naruto gave her a reassuring look and replied, "Don't worry, no matter how powerful he is, he's not as powerful as me. If he bullies you, I'll beat him up in a minute." Then Naruto's gaze turned to other places and saw a guy with short red hair, panda eyes, and a huge yellow gourd on his back. "Sannin, human pillar force, my love." My love felt Naruto's gaze and stared at him indifferently. Naruto smiled and raised his hand to greet him. My love's eyebrowless face frowned. He snorted and turned his head. "Where is Orochimaru hiding?" Naruto's gaze continued to search. In this examination room, Orochimaru was the guy standing at the top of the food chain. But at this time, one of the invigilators came over and said to Naruto and the others, "Why aren't you in line?" Naruto laughed and said, "We're waiting for everyone to take it before we go." The examiner raised his hand, and there were 3 number plates in his hand. "Give me your application form, and then pick any number plate." The 3 number plates were 53,105-23. Naruto handed over his application form, and picked up 105. Naruto felt that this number should be at the back, so that it would be convenient for him to observe the candidates. Examiner: "Okay, you can take your number plate and sit down in the designated position." Naruto thanked him, and then began to look for his number 105. The funny thing was that the number plates were arranged in a snake-shaped order, 105, in the first row. Awkward. 5 minutes later, under the initiative of many examiners and the queues, everyone got their number plates. The last number was 153, indicating that there were 153 people taking the exam this time. It was worth mentioning that Sakura Haruno was sitting next to Naruto. Naruto joked, "I'm not good at exams at all. I'll rely on you later." Sakura Haruno was stunned. Such a brazen person wanted to copy her paper. It was the first time she saw such a shameless person. Ahem. The examiner in front of Naruto cleared his throat, indicating his presence. Naruto turned his head and laughed. "It's okay, I just met an acquaintance and made a joke." The examiner raised his eyebrows and looked like he had eaten an S. At this moment, Ibiki on the podium picked up a piece of chalk and knocked on the blackboard, using his hoarse and unpleasant voice to shout, "There are a few important rules regarding this exam. I'll write them down on the blackboard and explain them. During this time, no one is allowed to ask questions. The first rule: there are a total of 10 questions, 1 point per question. The exam will implement a point deduction system. 1 point will be added if the answer is correct. 1 point will be deducted if the answer is incorrect. The second rule: this exam will be judged in groups of 3, based on the total score of the 3 members. The third rule: if you are caught cheating in the exam, 2 points will be deducted. Remember all of this. Those clumsy cheating methods are tantamount to digging your own grave. If you want to be a chunin, then act like a real ninja." Ibishi's gaze swept across all the candidates from right to left as he said in a low voice, "There's one last rule. For those who have all their points deducted or get 0 points, all the members of their teams will be disqualified. Okay. The exam time is 1 hour, now the exam begins. After receiving the paper, Naruto glanced through it. Analysis of the code, simulation of the enemy scene, and so on. After a glance, Naruto curled his lips and thought disdainfully, "It's pretty simple." Naruto began to answer the questions with his pen nimbly twirling around his fingers. 5 minutes later he finished. Putting down his pen, Naruto stared blankly at the ceiling. So boring. At this time, Sakura Haruno was still answering the third question. Sakura Haruno secretly glanced at Naruto, and when she saw that Naruto's paper was already full, she felt as if there was a bear roaring in her heart. He's answering blindly. Huh. Doesn't he need to think? Huh. Naruto stared blankly for a while, then suddenly raised his hand. Ibiki looked at Naruto and said coldly, "What's the matter?" Naruto smiled and asked, "That. I've finished the first 9 questions. The 10th question is written on the exam paper to be given by the examiner, so can you just tell me the 10th question directly? I want to hand in my paper early." Ibiki's face darkened, and she said sternly, "No." After another 5 minutes, Naruto raised his hand again. Ibiki's mouth twitched and she said in a low voice, "What's the matter now?" Naruto smiled and asked, "I've finished the first 9 questions. Since I have nothing to do, can I hand in the first 9 questions first, and then invigilate the exam for you?" An examinee suddenly jumped out to invigilate the exam? What was he trying to do? Not only was Ibiki dumbfounded, but even the other examinees were dumbfounded. They couldn't help but think, is there something wrong with this kid's brain? Ibiki looked at Naruto with a scarred face. Reason? Naruto smiled and said, "First of all, it's boring sitting here, and second, if I find out that someone cheated 5 times, that would be a deduction of 10 points, and I could directly kick them out. Then there would be fewer competitors, right?" Chapter 68. Ibiki smiled. Her scarred face looked particularly ferocious under this smile. Her voice was low and cold. "You mean you will be more professional than us?" Naruto also smiled and said, "Not at all. More people means more power." Ibiki walked in front of Naruto. Her sharp eyes were like an eagle looking down at Naruto indifferently. Naruto calmly looked back at her. During this time, all the candidates stopped writing and looked over. There wasn't even the sound of writing in the exam room. It was very quiet for a moment. Sakura Haruno, who was the closest, looked at Naruto and the invigilator timidly. In her eyes, Naruto was like a bold little white rabbit looking at an eagle. He was really looking for trouble. She was a little worried for Naruto, but more than that, she hoped that the invigilator would be angry and kick Naruto out of the exam room. That way, she would win against Naruto this time. When she passed the Chunin exam and was promoted to Chunin, she would see Naruto, who was only a genin. That kind of scene. She was looking forward to it. Sakura Haruno unconsciously crossed her arms in front of her chest. Not because she was worried, but because she was praying. "Ninja God who protects the wood leaf, if you hear my prayer, kick this arrogant guy out of the exam room." While Sakura Haruno was praying, candidate number 53 Hinata, who was far behind Naruto, was also praying. The content of her prayer was naturally for Naruto. "Naruto-kun, please don't let anything happen to him." Not far away, but in the other direction, candidate number 23 Sasuke frowned. What was Naruto doing now? Was he deliberately looking for trouble? Did he want the invigilator to disqualify him? Or was it really like what he said, that he would catch the cheaters and then take the opportunity to clear out the competitors? Naruto and Ibiki stared at each other for a long time before Ibiki finally moved. She raised her hand and picked up Naruto's test paper before turning her gaze to the test paper. He scanned through Naruto's paper as fast as he could. At this moment, the coldness on his face gradually melted like snow and was replaced by a smile. However, when this sinister face smiled, it couldn't be considered good-looking. It only made one's scalp tingle. All 9 questions were answered correctly, and they were all very close to the standard answers. Ibiki placed the paper back on Naruto's table and laughed in a low and hoarse voice. Interesting brat, I agree with your proposal. Naruto's eyes sparkled. He grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth and praised, "This will be a wise decision." Then Naruto turned around and smiled at all the candidates. At the same time, he proudly raised his eyebrows at Sakura Haruno, who was already dumbstruck. The wind blew, blowing Sakura Haruno's pink hair. It fluttered, and at the same time, it rolled up a withered leaf. The wind was rustling, messy. The candidates didn't dare to whisper to each other, but at this moment, everyone looked at Naruto. Some people glared at him threateningly. Naruto saw a few ninjas with 4 vertical lines on their forehead protectors. Those were the Amagecure's forehead protectors, but he couldn't name them. Their expressions were very fierce. Naruto just casually glanced at that person. In his heart, he evaluated that person as a chihuahua. There was also someone who boldly threw a flirtatious glance at Naruto. It was a female ninja. Her appearance was not bad, and she wore a one-piece dress. Through the gap between the table and the chair, Naruto could see that it was a very sexy miniskirt that only wrapped around her hips. However, he also didn't recognize her. In his heart, he evaluated that she was a female chihuahua. Ibiki said in a deep voice, "Pay attention to the time." The candidates who cast various kinds of glances at Naruto finally lowered their heads and began to answer the test again. Naruto looked at the red-haired my love that he had already noticed in the crowd. He didn't answer the test. Instead, he sat quietly with his hands crossed in front of his chest. Naruto guessed that this guy should be waiting for others to answer more or less so that he could cheat. TSK, TSK, TSK. This time, I won't let you get what you want. Sandai, right? I will pay more attention to you. Naruto changed Chakra's nature to the water attribute. A drop of water appeared in Naruto's palm. Rolling, it floated in the air. Naruto clenched his fist and wrapped it. The water droplet in Naruto's hand constantly disintegrated into mist and spread in the surrounding air. Ibiki sensed something and looked at Naruto. However, she didn't stop him. Naruto smiled as he continued to size up the candidates below. He found his brother-in-law, Hinata Ninji. If his brother-in-law was caught by him and couldn't even pass the first test, he was looking forward to it. Tut, tut. 2 kunais suddenly flew out from the invigilator's hand and nailed onto the papers of 2 candidates. Number 102. Number 45. You have already cheated 5 times. Please leave the examination hall. The invigilator, whose hair stood on end, roared. One of the 2 candidates was scared out of his wits. His whole body was trembling. The other was also scared out of his wits but still wanted to resist. He shouted at the invigilator. What right do you have to say that I cheated 5 times? Show me the evidence. The invigilator disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he had already captured the candidate. He used one hand to press the candidate's head onto the table. My ability is the best proof. You are out. Domineering. Cool. Naruto wanted to shout, "You are all out." But if he did, Orochimaru-sama would beat him very badly. Naruto glanced at a bamboo hat on the table. There was a note hanging on the hat with the words "Evil Man" written on it. The man was wearing a forehead protector with a broken line on his head. It was the forehead protector of Kusagakure. Kusagakure was just a small ninja village. It wasn't worth Naruto's attention. What Naruto paid attention to was that this person's tongue was thin and long, just like the black and white impermanence. He had a head full of black hair and a smile in his eyes. The muscles on his face were frozen, and he was wearing a fake smile. This person was pretending to be a ninja from Kusagakure, Orochimaru. Naruto just glanced at him in a hurry. He didn't dare to stare at Orochimaru. He commented in his heart, Orochimaru-san is also answering questions seriously. This scene is really loving. Orochimaru certainly didn't need to cheat. Naruto turned his gaze to the other 2 people who were also wearing bamboo hats. One wrote "Crime, Crime," and the other wrote "Punishment, Punishment." These 2 people also wore the forehead protector of Kusagakure, and they teamed up with Orochimaru. Naruto already had a plan in his heart, and he was ready to start with these 2 people. According to the exam rules, as long as one person in the team gets 0 points, then the whole team is out. Naruto glanced at the two people. Ha! Sasuke opened his Sharingan. This means that Sasuke is copying other people's answers. Naruto suddenly had an impulse in his heart. He wanted to report Sasuke. It would be interesting. But after that, Kakashi will inevitably give him a week of electroshock therapy. Naruto shook his head and got rid of this idea. Chapter 69. Naruto resisted the impulse in his heart and shifted his gaze from Sasuke to the side, so he saw Xiaoli, who was sweating profusely. TSK. Sure enough, those with brawn are simple-minded. Watermelon cap, thick black eyebrows nearly 2 fingers thick, coupled with rolling eyes and drooping eyelashes. Kawaii, and that green skin-tight suit. Naruto's facial muscles twitched, but quickly returned to normal. Can't laugh. Absolutely can't laugh. Endure it. Naruto had a hard time holding it in. He quickly shifted his gaze to look for someone who didn't have such a stimulating laughing point. He found it: Orochimaru's undercover ambush in Woodleaf. In order to collect information, he took the Chunin exam 4 times in a row and didn't pass. He had silver-gray hair tied in a playful short ponytail and round glasses. From time to time, he would raise his hand to straighten the frame that didn't slip at all. This is a guy full of bad ideas. Seeing this person, Naruto's originally uncontrollable laughter quickly controlled. He observed for a while. Is answering the questions very smoothly. Also, he has taken the exam 4 times. If he still can't answer smoothly, then he should just commit suicide. Can this person be kicked out? Naruto looked for this person's 2 teammates in the crowd. Unfortunately, Naruto forgot what this guy's other 2 teammates looked like. This is Woodleaf's home ground. There were piles of genin wearing Woodleaf forehead protectors, occupying more than half of the entire examination room. Naruto was also face-blind for a while. This is difficult. Shikamaru? He also had a ponytail and black hair, but his hair was thicker. His hair stood up like a hedgehog, even if it was tied with a leather band. Naruto knew this was a smart guy, but what surprised him was that this smart guy wasn't answering the questions. His face was lazy and unwilling. Simply put, his expression was like he ate an S grade. This guy. Could it be that he also had to cheat to pass the test? Naruto looked at this guy's teammate Ino. Her long beige hair was very soft. Her bangs were separated from her hair and hung down from the right side of her face. When the wind blew, her hair fluttered with the wind. It was very gentle and elegant. She was a very delicate girl. Ino stole a glance at the front row. Naruto followed her gaze and saw Sakura Haruno. By this time, Sakura Haruno had finished her paper. However, he didn't look too happy, probably because Naruto finished in 5 minutes. Naruto looked at Ino again. Ino was about to make her move. Naruto saw her secretly forming hand seals. If he guessed correctly, she must have used a secret technique of the Yamanaka clan, the mind-body jutsu, to invade Sakura Haruno's body with her spiritual power. Naruto glanced at the surrounding invigilators. No one stopped Ino's little action. It was obvious that the use of ninjutsu was tacitly allowed. Ino formed hand seals with her hands, and then lay on the table as if she had fallen asleep. Naruto shifted his gaze to Sakura Haruno. Sakura Haruno's body stiffened. Then, an abnormal smile appeared on her face. She was very proud. At the same time, Shikamaru and Dingji, who was as fat as a ball, suddenly became energetic. They began to answer the questions properly. They didn't answer the questions before, but now they answered. It was obvious that Ino had used a secret technique to pass the answers to the 2 of them. At this time, someone raised his hand. Naruto looked over. It was the ninja of the Sand Country, Kankuro. Sorry. I need to go to the bathroom. Then an invigilator stood up and said, "Only invigilators can go." As he spoke, he picked up a handcuff and grilled Kankuro's hands. Then he took Kankuro out. Immediately after, Naruto felt the sand in the air begin to move consciously. My love formed hand seals with one hand. Silently, the sand gathered together. Naruto couldn't see these changes, but he could feel it from the dispersed water vapor in the air. Should he report my love? That was the last resort. Naruto wasn't afraid of my love, nor was he afraid of the Ichibi in his body. If he wanted to borrow the power of a tailed beast, Nine Tails was much stronger than him. But he didn't want to cause trouble for himself. After 5 minutes, Kankuro was brought back. Naruto said, "The ninja of Sannin who went to the bathroom. You can stand at the door and go home. You are out." This sentence attracted everyone's attention. It had been more than half an hour since the exam began. Naruto didn't speak. After such a long time, these people forgot that there was such a special invigilator. Kankuro angrily shouted, "Why?" At this time, the invigilators also looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at the invigilator who was about to untie Kankuro's hands and said, "That person is not an invigilator, but your puppet. You used a puppet to pretend to be an invigilator. Let him collect the answers. And then when you went to the bathroom, let the puppet tell you the answers. Am I right?" Kankuro was dumbfounded. The red paint on his face kept shaking as his facial muscles trembled. Naruto looked at Ibiki. Ibiki was also looking at him. Ibiki smiled and nodded indifferently said, "Since this trick can be discovered by a woodleaf genin, then you are out." Bastard. This was my love's roar. The quicksand quickly gathered and wrapped around Kankuro. Sand coffin. Kankuro was shocked. The puppet disguised as an invigilator and Kankuro switched positions. The sand bound the puppet, and as it tightened, creaking sounds could be heard. Then with a crash, Kankuro's puppet was crushed by the sand. "Stop! Private fights are forbidden in the exam room," Ibiki shouted, and at the same time, all the invigilators stood up. At this time, a Sannin woman stopped my love, Sama. Stop. It was a sexy beauty. This person was my love's sister Han Bao. Her height was above the rest of the candidates, and her figure was curvy. She was a mature beauty. My love stared at Kankuro, and when he heard Han Bao's shout, he turned to look at Han Bao. Han Bao was my love's sister. Kankuro was my love's brother. But it could be seen that Kankuro's brother, my love, listened to his sister. At least he stopped. The anger on my love's face gradually disappeared and was replaced by indifference. Then he snorted and left the exam room. But before he left, he turned around and glared at Naruto. "I will remember you." Naruto shrugged. He already tried his best to avoid angering my love. But it seemed like it didn't have any effect. My love left, and the sand scattered. Kankuro's puppet shattered into parts. Kankuro waved his hand, and Chakra controlled the puppet to reassemble it. Then he quickly wrapped it in a white cloth and carried it on his back. He followed my love out of the exam room with a lingering fear. Ibiki turned to Naruto and said, "Your performance was not bad. You surprised me. Now you can return to your seat. I will announce the 10th question." Naruto stood in place and smiled. "I caught a lot of people, let me drag them out, then I will go back." Naruto pointed at the person who was copying the answer with supercilious eyes and said, "Stop copying. You know that the answer is right or wrong, just copy." With Byakugan's 360-degree vision, Neji could see that Naruto was talking to him even if he lowered his head. He couldn't help but raise his head and look at Naruto. Naruto smiled. "You copied 5 questions, right? 5 cheats, get up, you are out." "Brother-in-law, I am sorry." Naruto was laughing wildly in his heart. Chapter 70. Hinata Ninji eliminated. Tian, who was sitting in the exam room with 2 cute little buns on her head, stared at him with her beautiful eyes. The pen in the corner of the table rolled and finally fell to the ground. With Tian's skill, she could have grabbed the pen back, but she didn't do so. She stared blankly at Hinata Ninji, who stood up and walked out, and her heart sank to the bottom. "Naruto." Tian turned her head and looked at Naruto. If the anger in her eyes could kill, then Naruto had no doubt that he would become a roasted chicken. Naruto kept smiling, but in his heart he comforted her. "Oh, this exam is very dangerous. Letting you quit early is for your own good." Tian got up, stared at Naruto and said, "I will remember you." Then she left the exam room. First, he was remembered by my love, then by Tian. Naruto was a little scared in his heart. Should he continue? Let Orochimaru also remember? Naruto didn't dare to look in the direction of Orochimaru, but Orochimaru had already commented. Is his name Naruto? What an interesting little guy. Naruto heard this sentence, and his face darkened. He really wanted to beat Tian Tian up. Tian Tian's shout before leaving made everyone remember him. Since he had already remembered, then what was there to be afraid of? Naruto turned his head and looked at the person with the punishment note hanging on his bamboo hat, and shouted, "And you cheated 5 times, get out." The person named by Naruto immediately retorted, "Show me the evidence." Naruto didn't hold back and mocked. "I said that out of the 9 questions, except for the first one, the last 8 were copied from others. If you refute me, I'll change the original question by a number. If you can answer it, it proves that you didn't cheat. Do you dare?" The ninja with Kyuzugakure ninja didn't speak, and stared at Naruto fiercely. Ibiki said, "Get out." Orochimaru disguised as a ninja got up and applauded. "You are a very interesting little guy, very good." Praised by Orochimaru. Naruto suddenly felt a little thirsty. Orochimaru walked to the door and suddenly turned back and said, "I will remember you." Hehe another, "I will remember you." It can be imagined that after Chunin's exam, Naruto's name will spread throughout most of the ninja world. For some reason, thinking of this, Naruto was a little excited. He looked at Ino. At this time, Ino had finished her mind-body jutsu and looked at Naruto with an open face. She seemed to be saying that even if you catch everyone, you will not find out that I cheated. Naruto looked at her for a few seconds. Ino. Although their team has a smart but lazy Shikamaru, and a fat Dingji who only knows how to eat, or let her go for the sake of their classmates' friendship? Naruto was about to shift his gaze, but at this time, Ino gave Naruto a provocative look. Hiss. Naruto took a breath of cold air. He thought to himself, "I have a bad temper." Naruto stared back. "You cheated and copied Sakura Haruno's test paper. You copied the 10 questions from the beginning to the end, and you almost copied your name." Yamanaka Ino's eyes that were still staring solidified, which made the originally arrogant and delicate beautiful eyes become dull in an instant. Naruto continued. "At the same time, not only did you cheat, you also passed the answers to your 2 companions. The 3 of you gave the same answers. Do you have any objections?" Ino opened her mouth. I. Ino didn't say anything. Shikamaru had already stood up. He crossed his fingers behind his head and said indifferently, "Well, since I was caught, that's good. I don't want to take any Chunin's exam anyway." Then, before the head examiner could say anything, he left. Shikamaru didn't say anything before leaving. "I'll remember your words." This made Naruto feel a little disappointed. But then Ino Yamanaka made up for it. Before walking out of the examination room, she snorted, "I'll remember you." Naruto smiled and turned to Sakura Haruno with a smile. Sakura Haruno saw Naruto looking at her, and raised her neck proudly. She looked like she was saying, "I answered myself. What can you do about it?" Naruto smiled and looked at Sakura Haruno's teammate Shinoyomi. Sakura Haruno saw Naruto look away from her, and was happy. But then, she saw Naruto look at Shinoyomi. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Naruto opened his mouth. You cheated with bugs. You cheated 7 times. Shinoyomi and Shikamaru Nara did the same. Without waiting for the head examiner to speak, they raised their hands to adjust their round black sunglasses, and got up to leave. Sakura Haruno's heart went crazy. Naruto. Just you wait. Sakura Haruno left. Another teammate, Tooth Inuzuka, got up and left helplessly. The puppy lying on Tooth Inuzuka's head roared at Naruto before it left. "I wonder if that means I'll remember you. Should I make a dog meat hot pot some other day?" Naruto looked at the puppy that roared at him and thought. At this point, all the elite ninjas in the Chunin exam were eliminated. The rest, Naruto thought about it and decided to let them stay. Otherwise, if they were all eliminated, what was the point of the exam? Naruto clapped his hands and returned to his seat. He smiled and said, "That's it, there's nothing else." Ibi's eyes swept around with joy. With Ibiki's eyesight, how could she not know what kind of people were left? She was speechless. Was there a need to continue the Chunin exam? Ibiki looked at Naruto with a hint of bitterness in her eyes. "I'll now announce the 10th question. Ibiki was silent for a while before she finally opened her mouth. For the 10th question, I'd like to add a few rules. These are despairing rules. But fortunately, you can choose whether to take the exam or not. Ibixi's gaze swept across the room. The atmosphere in the examination room became solemn again under this gaze. If you choose not to take the exam, your score will be 0. At the same time, the other 2 in your group will also be disqualified. If you choose to take the exam and fail, then you won't be qualified to take the Chunin exam again in this lifetime. At this time, someone raised his hand and asked, "That's not right. How can there be such a question? Many of us have taken the Chunin exam more than once." Ibiki smiled. The hideous scars on her face twisted together. Naruto glanced at her and commented in his heart that this was a shocking smile. Ibiki said, "If you want to blame someone, blame the person who organized the exam. It's me." The person who stood up wanted to argue, but when he saw Ibiki's fierce look, he swallowed his words and obediently sat back down. Ibiki. "All right. I've said what I wanted to say. Those who don't want to take the exam, raise your hand and signal your number. You can leave after that." As soon as she finished speaking, someone raised his hand and said, I don't want to take the exam." With one person taking the lead, more people followed behind. One after another, in a minute, more than half of the 100 people in the room left. Naruto casually crossed his legs and rested his chin on his hand as he watched people leave one by one. When no one left, Ibiki looked at Naruto. "Kid, you're not bad. If you don't pass this time, you won't be able to advance to Chunin in the future. You're not giving up? Sometimes, giving up is the right choice." Naruto raised his head and casually replied, "You're asking me? It's okay, I don't care. I just learned 2 new skills not long ago. Even if I can't advance to Chunin, I can still be a swordsmith. Even if I can't be a swordsmith, I can still be a medical ninja." As he said that, he waved his hand casually as if he didn't care about Chunin's rank. Ibiki's mouth twitched when she heard that. At this time, according to the original plan, she should announce that those who insisted on staying passed the exam. However, when Ibiki saw Naruto's nonchalant expression, she suddenly wanted to change her words. Should she change the 10th question and give him a question that he definitely won't be able to answer? For some reason, Ibiki really wanted to see Naruto holding a hammer every day for the rest of his life. P.S. Would leave strength above all QQ group. 6275766058. Chapter 71. Do you want to add a 10th question? Ibiki looked at Naruto, and the more she looked at him, the stronger the impulse in her heart became. But Ibiki looked up at the remaining candidates in the room. There were originally 153 people, but now there are only 36 people left, which means there are only 12 groups left. If the kid didn't remove those elites, there would be at least 51 people left, 17 groups. In this case, if there is another question, then this year's Chunin exam will be a big mistake. After all, this is only the first exam. Now I announce that everyone present has passed this exam. Ibiki was helpless, and she stared at Naruto. Naruto turned his head to the back, deliberately avoiding her eyes. Ibi gritted his teeth in joy and hatred. Well, everyone present must have doubts in their hearts. Next, I will explain the exam. The first 9 questions test everyone's ability to collect and analyze information. Under normal circumstances, with your current level, most people can't answer these questions correctly. So we arranged 2 Chunin in the middle of the examination room, who know the answers to the questions with you. What you have to do is to find them, and then use your means to get the correct answer. At this time, an Amigakure ninja asked, "So cheating is allowed?" Ibishi looked over and nodded his head. Cheating is indeed allowed. However, for those who cheat clumsily, Ibiki raised her hand and untied the black headscarf connected to the ninja's forehead. His head was full of burns, knife wounds, and even holes. For a time, the entire examination room was silent under such a fierce visual impact. They can only be disqualified. Because information is sometimes more important than life, so when performing a mission or on the battlefield, Sometimes you have to get information even if you have to risk your life. Ibiki put on the headscarf again. After obtaining information, if it is discovered or known by the third party, the information obtained is not necessarily reliable. You must remember, if the information is wrong, it will put your companions and even the village in extreme danger. So this exam is to test your ability to collect information and eliminate unqualified people. Saying this, Ibiki looked at Naruto. Ibiki was surprised that Naruto could catch so many people. This kid has some skills. Naruto saw Ibiki looking at him, so he diverted her attention. What about the 10th question? Ibiki's face twitched. This guy really doesn't know the purpose of the 10th question. Thinking of Naruto's words that if he can't be promoted to Chunin, Iki can't help but feel uncomfortable. To let such a fellow pass the exam under his watch. No matter how he thought about it, he was unwilling to accept it. But even if he tried to stop him, if this guy in front of him is really talented in medical ninjutsu, then he will be promoted to a Chunin. Because in the medical ninja system, there is an independent promotion rule. Ibiki said. In fact, the 10th question is the real test. Facing the 10th question, you have to choose whether to take the exam or not. This is indeed difficult to choose. If you don't take the exam, you will cause your companions to lose the qualification. If you answer the exam wrong, you can only endure it for the rest of your life. This question is actually not reasonable. But if you really encounter such a situation, what will you choose? If you are already Chunin, and the mission is to seize the enemy's confidential documents, but you don't know the number, strength, and weapons of the enemy, and there is a possibility of being ambushed, what will you do at this time? Ibiki's eyes swept across everyone's face. Because you are afraid of losing your life, you don't want your companions to be in danger, so you give up the dangerous mission? Everyone began to ponder Ibiki's words. Ibiki said firmly, "You can't do that. Sometimes, some missions have to be accepted no matter how dangerous it is. At this time you can give your companions courage and have the ability to get out of trouble. These are the qualifications that a Chunin must have as a squad commander." Ibiki's voice rapidly penetrated everyone's hearts, and she continued to reprimand them. People who are afraid of the slightest thing in the face of danger. People who pin their hopes on the unpredictable next year. And people who take the initiative to quit. In my opinion, they are all weak-willed trash. They don't deserve to be Chunin. The lingering sound of her voice woke everyone up. Ibiki's voice slowed down, and there was even a hint of gentleness, love, and expectation on her face. And you, who are going to take the 10th question, can be said to have given the correct answer to this question. I am sure that you will be able to overcome all the difficulties you will encounter in the future. Ibiki's face relaxed, and for a moment, the scar across the squad leader's face didn't seem so hideous. You have passed my test. The first test of the Chunin selection exam is over. Then, she revealed a smile that wasn't too ugly. You have to work hard in the future. The first test was finally over. Without those genius monsters like Orochimaru, my love, Hinata Ningji, and Lee Locke, Naruto only felt relaxed. For a moment, he couldn't help but yawn. He sighed in his heart. My future is bright. At this moment, crash. The side window was suddenly smashed, and a black whirlwind shot in from the outside towards the podium. Tut. Tut. The whirlwind opened up and two kunai shot to the left and right of the roof, unfurling a large flag and hanging it on the roof. On the flag there were the words, Second Examiner, Mitarashi Red Bean participate. In front of the flag, there was a sexy female examiner wearing a windbreaker, a see-through fishnet bodysuit and a miniskirt. Her hair was tied up in a hedgehog ponytail. It's too early to be happy. I'm the head examiner of the second test. Mitarashi Red Bean. Before she could finish, Red Bean was suddenly speechless. She glanced at the empty classroom, and then looked at Ibiki in disbelief. I heard that. 153 people applied for this test? Ibiki Marino nodded awkwardly. Red Bean's facial muscles twitched as she pointed at the remaining 36 people. Then can you tell me what you did? Ibiki Marino actually scratched her head in embarrassment after being questioned. This year's examinees are quite bad. Red Bean Marino was unwilling. No matter how bad they are, you can't just leave me with 1/5, right? Do you know that I'll have to reschedule the rest of the test? Reschedule the test? What did she mean? Was she going to change the test topic? Naruto Marino perked up and listened carefully. Ibiki continued to scratch her head, not knowing how to respond. Red Bean Mitarashi remained silent for a moment before saying, I want to reselect the people you eliminated. Ibiki frowned. Isn't that inappropriate? Mitarashi Red Bean immediately left. Then I'll report this matter to Sandame-sama and let him decide. Naruto was dumbfounded. He had already offended all the elites. If those elites came back now, Naruto's heart suddenly skipped a beat. No. Chapter 72. At the end of the first exam, Sandame's office became lively. 2 examiners stood in the front row, Red Bean Mitarai and Ibiki Marino. Behind him were the 4 team leaders, Kakashi Hatake, Metkei, Sarutobi Asuma, and Kurenai. Third Naruto placed his hands on the desk, crossed his fingers and propped up his chin. I heard that after the first exam, only 36 of the 153 candidates were left. Ibiki, are the candidates this time that bad? The corner of Ibiki's mouth twitched as she said insincerely, yes. Before she could finish her sentence, Ibiki felt 3 pairs of eyes staring at her from behind. Ibiki awkwardly looked back and saw Mato Guy's face flushed red with anger, Sarutobi Asuma's face full of anger, and Kurenai Crimson's beautiful face. Naruto. That bastard. At this moment, what Ibiki wanted to do the most was to get Naruto into the interrogation room. Well, it's not too bad. Woodleaf's batch of freshmen has a lot to recommend them. Under the pressure from behind, Ibiki Marino didn't say the word bad in the end. The third Hokage nodded. Explain the specific situation. Ibiki Marino sighed. This is all because of a wrong decision on my part. I'm willing to bear the punishment. Third Naruto raised his head and asked, what kind of decision could eliminate more than half of the elites in an exam? Tell me about it. Ibiki Marino explained, I have already given the exam questions to Naruto-sama before the exam. Naruto-sama should know that the first exam is mainly to test the candidate's temperament. Third Naruto nodded and praised. The questions you came up with are pretty good. Is there anything that didn't go well? Ibiki Marino continued. The first 5 minutes of the exam went quite smoothly until Naruto finished his paper. Naruto. Kakashi Hatake's heart jumped. He had originally planned to watch the show from the sidelines. After all, his class 7 had passed the exam. But at this moment, when he heard Naruto's name, an ominous premonition arose. He couldn't help but think in his heart. Could it be that Naruto, that guy, is up to something again? That can't be. What could possibly happen in a written exam? Answer the questions when you should, cheat when you should, cheat when you should. How can you affect others when you play with your own game? Kakashi couldn't understand. He perked up his ears and waited for Ibiki to continue. Ibiki Marino said, after Naruto finished answering the question, he asked if I could tell him the 10th question. He wanted to hand in his paper in advance. This request was directly rejected. Then 5 minutes later, Naruto asked if I could hand in the first 9 questions first, and then help me invigilate the exam. I agreed. I thought that a cheating method could be easily discovered by a genin, and kicked out. But I didn't expect that Naruto directly kicked out the 5 teams that were ranked in the front. Naruto Hatake's interest was piqued. He put down his hand and looked up and asked, which 5 teams? Ibiki Marino replied, Woodleaf's 3 teams this year plus Sanon's team, my love's team and Kusagaku's team. Brush brush brush. Metkei, Asuma, and Kurenai looked at Kakashi at the same time. Kakashi took a step back and said with a smile, this has nothing to do with me. Metkei Hatake suddenly hugged Kakashi's shoulder with a fierce flame in his eyes. It seems that not only you are my lifelong opponent, but the fate of your students and my students has been entangled together. Youth. You are so passionate. Kakashi, who was originally a little flustered, suddenly had a dead fish's eyes. He found that no matter what he encountered in front of this joker, the atmosphere would change instantly. Naruto Hataki's fingers tapped on the table. He praised, "Naruto, this little guy really surprised me this time." Red Bean asked, "Sandame Naruto, Sama, I propose to rescreen the students who were eliminated in the first round. Otherwise, there will only be 6 teams left after my round, and those 6 teams are not good enough." Naruto Hataki pondered, I refuse to rescreen." A loud shout came from outside Naruto Hataki's office. Everyone looked over and saw Naruto hanging upside down outside Naruto Hataki's office window. Kakashi Hataki's eyelids twitched when he saw Naruto Hataki. This guy actually dared to eavesdrop on Naruto Hataki's meeting. Was there anything he didn't dare to do? Kakashi instantly appeared behind Naruto Hataki and captured Naruto. At the same time, he electrocuted Hataki, but the next moment, Naruto in his hand disappeared with a bang. Only a cloud of mist was left. It was a clone. Kakashi Hataki's mouth twitched. At this moment, another Naruto Hataki appeared and shouted, "I firmly oppose this proposal. Your resistance is ineffective." Red Bean made her move. 5 or 6 snake heads darted out from her sleeves and coiled around Naruto. Latent shadow snakeskin. Unfortunately, this one was also a clone. Then, as if it was raining, a pile of Naruto fell from the roof of the Naruto building. At the same time he shouted, "We firmly reject the proposal of rescreening." Kakashi raised his hand and patted his forehead. At the same time he retreated back into the house and decided to let Red Bean work on her own. Naruto laughed and waved his hand. "Red Bean, take a break. Naruto, stop messing around. Come in and tell me why you don't agree." Red Bean Mitarashi angrily crushed Naruto in her hand before she snorted and returned to Naruto's office. Naruto followed him into the office. Seeing that Red Bean was about to attack again, Seiji hurriedly hid behind Naruto's back. Naruto knocked on the table. "Alright, everyone stop." Then he turned around to look at Naruto. "Tell me, why did you refuse?" Naruto complained. "Is there even a need to say it? If the rescreening happens, those 5 teams will definitely come back. They'll definitely take revenge on me. Then I'll definitely have a hard time in the future exams. I won't do it. Besides, I'm not in the wrong. You can't use your own mistakes to punish me, right? That's too much of a bully," Red Bean Mitarashi insisted. "The Chunin exam is incredibly important to the village, especially the last round. Famous people from all over the world will be invited to watch. This will affect the future missions the village will receive." Naruto raised his hand and stopped Red Bean Mitarashi from continuing. "You can leave for now. Let me talk to this little guy alone." Sarutobi Asuma and Kurenai bowed and left. Ibiki was right behind them. Red Bean Mitarashi glared at Naruto because she didn't manage to catch Naruto. Kakashi Hataki's hand crackled with electricity. He didn't need to say anything to warn Seiji. On the other hand, Mekkei gave Seiji a thumbs up and grinned, revealing a row of neat teeth. He laughed heartily and praised Seiji. Naruto was moved by this. He sighed in his mind. Some teachers are called other people's teachers. Chapter 73. When everyone left, Sandame Naruto said to Naruto, "Conducting a second round of screening for the eliminated people is the most appropriate thing to do in this situation." Naruto looked at Sandame Naruto pitifully. "Sandame Naruto-sama, if you do this, then I'm doomed. If I accidentally die in the competition because of your decision, how will you face Sandame Naruto in the future?" "Meet Sandame Naruto?" "Bah. Sandame Naruto is already dead. Didn't Sandame Naruto say that he's dead when he sees him?" Sandame Naruto's face darkened, and his beard curled up in anger. Naruto continued to plead bitterly. "You can't just push me into the fire pit knowing full well that it's a fire pit, right?" Sandame Naruto's mouth twitched, and he resisted the urge to swear and flipped the table, and shook his head firmly. Naruto said with a look of despair, "Is there really no room for negotiation?" Sandame Naruto comforted him. "The people you offended may not be able to return to the competition." Naruto rolled his eyes. The people he offended, Orochimaru. How could Orochimaru be eliminated by others in the preliminary round? "My love, That was the human pillar force of the Ichibi who was always on the verge of rage. Hinata Ninji, the genius of the Hyuga clan who didn't appear in 100 years, who taught himself the secret technique of the Hyuga clan at a young age. How could he not be able to deal with a preliminary round? The beautiful wood-leaf blue beast Shaoli, that guy was willing to bet his life in order to win the competition, and directly opened 5 gates of the Hashiman Tanku. Naruto had learned the Hashiman Tanku, and opening 1 gate was already tiring enough. Opening 5 gates? Only one word could describe him as a pervert. Ino Yamanaka, who hated Naruto to the bone, and the Ino Shika butterfly team had always been Woodleaf's strongest team. None of the 5 teams were easy to deal with. However, Naruto had thoroughly offended all 5 of them. Naruto felt that he should just pack up and pass away. He rolled his eyes and said to Naruto, "Do you even believe your own words?" Sandaime Naruto remained silent. Naruto asked again, "Lord Third Naruto, have you made your decision?" Naruto sighed. "I've made a decision." Naruto nodded and said, "Alright, how about this? If you give me the other ice escape secret technique, I'll reluctantly agree." Naruto asked curiously, "You want another scroll of ice escape? I thought you were going to withdraw from the competition. So you've learned the ice escape secret technique I gave you before?" Naruto thought that if it weren't for Kakashi, that Tian freak, who could electrocute people for no reason, he would definitely have asked to withdraw from the competition. "I've learned it, so give me the other scroll." When Chunon's exam was over, Sandaime Naruto would pass away. At that time, he wouldn't be able to find Sandaime Naruto anymore. Thus, Naruto had been thinking about how to get the other scroll of ice escape secret technique before Chunon's exam ended. However, Sandaime Naruto shook his head. "Even if I give it to you now, you won't be able to learn it immediately. I'll give it to you after you pass Chunon's exam." Naruto looked at Sandaime Naruto. Sandaime Naruto smiled kindly at him. Sandaime Naruto wanted him to prove himself? No way. He had offended 5 powerful teams in a row, and he still wanted to pass the exam? This exam was really difficult to reach new heights. Naruto said helplessly, "Give me a 50% discount. Give it to me after I pass the second exam. I've offended 5 extremely powerful teams in a row. Passing the second exam is already far beyond what an ordinary person can do." Of course, the most important thing was that Chunon's exam couldn't go all the way to the end. Naruto looked at Sandaime Naruto. Sandaime Naruto looked at Naruto and smiled. "If you can pass the second exam, then you can definitely pass the third exam. Okay, I promise you. When you pass the second exam, I'll give you the second scroll." Naruto finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Sandaime Naruto wouldn't let go of this condition. If that's the case, he probably won't be able to see the second scroll. Naruto seriously bowed 90 degrees to Naruto. After the ceremony, Naruto left Naruto's office. After Naruto left, a man with gauze over his right eye and his right arm hidden in his clothes came in from the side door. It was a separate room in the ninja's office. "Hiruzen, are you really going to give him that technique?" Naruto looked at him and said, "Since he has the ice release Kekii Genkai, let him use it. In this way, other people who don't know the truth won't believe that he's a descendant of Sandaime Naruto. It's good for him and the village." The man with gauze over his right eye nodded. "Well, no one will believe that a kid confused with his Kekii Genkai, so no one will believe that he's that person's child. This is indeed a good idea. Hiruzen, it seems that you have learned these things that you said you couldn't learn in the past." Naruto sighed and shook his head. "It's all for the sake of the village. However, Danzo, I'm different from you." The man called Danzo smiled. "You and I are indeed different, but this matter can't be hidden. Your disciple knows Naruto's identity, and Kakashi Hatake also knows a lot." Naruto shook his head. "They know what's important. They won't talk nonsense." Naruto left Naruto's office. When he went downstairs, he saw Kakashi Hatake leaning against the wall reading a book. The corner of his mouth twitched, but he still raised his hand to greet him. "Hey, Kakashi-sensei, are you waiting for me?" Kakashi raised his dead fish eyes and looked at Naruto listlessly. "Why do you always have to stir up trouble? Can't you just quietly pass the first round of the exam? Quietly be a pretty boy." Naruto blinked and pondered for a moment. It seemed to be a good choice. He replied, "Well, I will quietly pass the second round of the exam." Kakashi looked at Naruto numbly and mocked. "I'm afraid you won't be able to keep a low profile in the next exam." Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "Yeah, Sai, it's hard to be a good person. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind won't stop." Seeing Naruto suddenly walk like an old man, Kakashi suddenly had the urge to kick Naruto to the sky. But in the end he endured it. He was still very happy that Naruto didn't choose to withdraw from the competition because of difficulties. Why did he wait here? If Naruto really wanted to give up, he could kick Naruto back in time. Kakashi. "Okay, I still have something to do, so I'll go first. Remember to go to room 301 tomorrow to learn about the arrangements for the next exam." Kakashi left. Naruto jumped onto the roof. Naruto preferred to walk alone on the roof, rather than suffer the disdain of passers-by on the road. But where to go? Naruto felt for the key in his pocket. Because of Chunin's exam, Naruto hasn't gone to Uncle's house since the last time he left. But today Naruto wanted to go there. As for why, Naruto was afraid that he would be killed by Orochimaru in the middle of the night. Multiple shadow doppelganger technique created more than 100 doppelgangers, which then left in different directions. This way it's safe. Chapter 74. 100 doppelgangers scattered in all directions. Looking down from the sky, it looked like fireworks that suddenly bloomed. It started at one point and disappeared into the vast expanse. In the dark, two Umbu ninjas wearing animal masks looked at each other. "What should we do?" the man in the monkey mask asked. The man in the dog mask raised his right hand. "Let me try." He formed a seal with one hand, gathered chakra in his eyes, and opened Byakugan. At a glance, 100 doppelgangers were in his eyes. But it was impossible to distinguish which one was the main body. These doppelgangers went everywhere. Some went to the library, some went to the park to lie on the bench under the shade of the trees, some went to the hospital, some went to the ninja shop to buy detonation charms at will. There were all kinds of doppelgangers, and it was impossible to distinguish which one was the main body and which one was the doppelganger. The Byakugan dispelled and said helplessly, "I can't help it. Each doppelganger is equally distributed to chakra. It's impossible to distinguish which one is the main body." The Umbu ninja wearing the monkey mask sighed. "This cunning brat, could it be that he found us?" The man in the dog mask shook his head. "Although I don't want to admit it, all the signs indicate that it is most likely so. Let's go to this brat's house. This guy will eventually go home." The man in the monkey mask nodded. "That's the only way. Otherwise, it will be difficult to report to the Lord." Naruto's main body was lying on a bench in the park at this time. Ninetales sealed space. Naruto sat cross-legged in front of Ninetales' cage. Inside the cage, Ninetales, who was lying on the ground, asked, "Nine Lama Sensei, is there anyone following me now?" Ninetales didn't raise his head or open his eyes. He yawned lazily, then smacked his lips and replied, "No. But as long as you remove the doppelgangers, these guys will still come to you." Naruto said indifferently, "Then we'll use the old method. Leave a clone at home to sleep. Tomorrow morning, let the clone use multiple shadow clone again. The main body will blend in with the clone, and then remove the clone. That way, we can fool them perfectly." Ninetales opened his eyes and looked at Naruto, then slowly closed them and reminded him, "This method can only fool ordinary ninjas. If someone can perceive my chakra, then they can see through your clone." Naruto was shocked. "Teacher Nine Lamas, why didn't you say so earlier?" Ninetales said perfunctorily, Because none of the people who are currently monitoring you can see through my existence. That requires a unique eye technique." When Naruto heard this, he felt slightly relieved. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, "But this matter needs to be prepared. Who knows when there will be people like Yu Yan. Teacher Nine Lamas, do you have a way to give chakra to my clone?" Ninetales turned his head and looked in the direction of Naruto and said perfunctorily, "Let's talk about it when we meet that guy." The bench in the park was very comfortable. He closed his eyes and listened to the rustling of the leaves. He felt the wind gently brushing his cheeks and blowing his hair. Smelling the fresh air with a wisp of fragrance, he unconsciously felt a little sleepy. Naruto didn't let the sleepiness grow. He opened his eyes. The blue sky was blocked by layers of dense leaves. Only when the wind blew a little stronger can you see a small piece of the sky between the branches and leaves. Naruto didn't know if it was because of the influence of the lazy fox in his body, but he also yawned. Then he stretched and finally struggled to sit up on the bench. Naruto chose a place where there was no one around. There was only a quiet winding path and a dense forest. When his head was a little more awake in the cool wind, Naruto got up and left. It seems it's time to learn the body flicker technique. Chakra gathered in his legs could also increase his speed, but it was only 2 or 3 times faster than an ordinary person. There was no way to compare it with the body flicker technique. The best body flicker technique was naturally a space-time ninjutsu, such as Flying Thunder God technique. But without the Ein attribute Chakra's nature change, even if he had the method to practice it, he couldn't practice it. Taking a step back, the wind release body flicker technique was a good choice. But he didn't have the method to practice the wind release body flicker technique. Naruto walked through the dense forest, trying not to leave any obvious traces, moving on the thick branches. Nine Lama Sensei, help me pay attention to whether anyone is following me. Inside his body, Nine-Tailed lazily grunted in acknowledgement. Nine Lama Sensei, do you know the wind release body flicker technique? Nine-Tails replied straightforwardly, no. Naruto curled his lips. You've lived for so long, why don't you learn it? Nine-Tails was speechless. My chakra doesn't have the wind attribute. Learning the wind release is a fart. What he said made sense. Naruto felt speechless. Nine-Tails. But there is indeed a guy who can use the wind release. You've seen him before, the little guy who carried the sand gourd in Sannin. I felt a familiar aura in his body. If I'm not wrong, he should be Sannin's human pillar force. Nine-Tails was talking about Shikaku? Naruto rolled his eyes. Come on, can't you say something more reliable? That guy isn't sealed in my body. I can't find him no matter who I look for to learn the wind release technique. Nine-Tails. That's not necessarily true. If you can make that human pillar force cooperate with you, I have a way to let you see that guy. That guy is like a grandson when he sees me. I promise I can make him teach you the wind release body flicker technique. Make my love cooperate with me. Naruto's face turned bitter. This is even more unreliable. I just offended my love. How can he cooperate with me? Moreover, that guy's temper is so bad that he would even beat up his own brother. Even if I don't offend him, I probably won't succeed. Nine-Tails said casually. Then beat him until he can't resist. I also have a way to let you see that guy. Naruto looked up at the sky, feeling stifled for a moment. In his opinion, Nine-Tails' proposal was not reliable. My love was a tailed beast that would kill wantonly. In short, he was not to be messed with. Nine-Tails encouraged. In the past, I would beat that guy up when I was bored. Since you are my apprentice, beating up his little brother is just like playing. If you can't beat him, then your apprentice is too shameful. Beat a chibi when he was bored? What kind of habit is this? Beat Daodu when he eats and sleeps? Naruto's face turned black. It might be easy for Nine-Tails to beat a chibi, but my love was not only the human pillar force, but also the protection of his mother. That sand gourd could automatically protect my love. With a passive absolute defense, how could he beat it? When Shaoli fought this monster, he even opened the 5th gate. Naruto complained. You were able to beat a chibi because the patriarch of the 6 paths was biased. When he created you, he gave you the biggest share of chakra. Nine-Tails wondered. Who said that? We were all created to be on the same level. On the same level? Impossible. Naruto denied without thinking. How could you beat the other guys at the same level? Nine-Tails explained. That's because the human pillar force who sealed me died the least. If the human pillar force dies, I will die too. The price of resurrection is that my strength is reduced by more than half. So that's the reason. Naruto had guessed the price of a tailed beast's death, but he did not expect it to be this. If that's the case, Then it makes sense. They arrived at the store manager's villa. Naruto took out the key and opened the door. However, to his surprise, as soon as the door opened, he saw Haru Sakuratani and Natsuya Sakuragi. Sister, the guests are here. Our romantic two-person world is over. Natsuya Sakuragi, the blue-haired maid, and her sister interlocked their fingers, looking sad. Sister, don't say that. Mrs. Orders are above everything. Naruto blinked dumbly. Didn't Canon Chiba leave after her birthday? Why are you still here? Chapter 75. On the outskirts of Konoha, in a very large private villa, Naruto chatted with the two girls for a long time, and finally figured out the ins and outs of the matter. Naruto was flattered and said, "Senior sister Hanin asked you to stay so that you can teach me swordsmanship?" Natsuya Sakuragi wiped the non-existent tears on her face and said, "Miss Hanin is very grateful for the recommendation letter you wrote, so she used us to repay your kindness." This sentence sounded a bit ambiguous. Naruto wanted to ask, "Are you going to be mine in the future?" But thinking about it, he would definitely be beaten like a dog by her swordsmanship, so forget it. Naruto bowed and thanked. "I'm really sorry because of me, you can't participate in senior sister Hanane's birthday." The pink-haired sister brought the cake and said with a smile, "If it's only because of the birthday, we are still grateful to you." Naruto waited to hear the next words, but there was no more. Haru Sakuratani put the cake on the table in front of Naruto, then changed the topic and said, "After eating this cake, we will teach you swordsmanship." Agree? Of course he agreed. For the current Naruto, there was nothing happier than improving his strength. Naruto combined the two bites into one and directly finished the cake. Minguchuan said, "The store manager said that you are very good at cloning. You will separate one of you to learn the basic theoretical knowledge with Xia, and the main body will practice with me." And so, the day of full slots began. The next morning, Naruto woke up early and went to the ninja school's 301 classroom to listen to the next exam arrangement. As soon as he entered the door, everyone's eyes were like sharp arrows shooting at him. Naruto comforted himself in his heart. "Relax, I'm not Naruto. I'm not Naruto." Well, at this time, Naruto has transformed into Iruka. Naturally, it was to avoid enmity. When Hinata saw Iruka coming to the classroom, she greeted him timidly in a low voice, "Hello, Mr. Iruka." Naruto imitated the Iruka in his memory and replied. At this time, other people also came over, such as Tian Tian. Tian. "Hello, Teacher Iruka. I'm Tian, a graduate from last year." Soon after, Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno also gathered around Naruto, and everyone started talking at once. Naruto's forehead was already sweating, but he couldn't back down now. Naruto kept telling himself, I am Iruka. However, the awkward thing was, with a creak, the door opened. Iruka walked in with the name list. Naruto looked at Iruka, who was looking at him in a daze, and his heart collapsed. He was in despair. Naruto transformed into Iruka himself. The two of them stared at each other in silence for 5 seconds. Iruka suddenly pointed at Naruto transformed into Iruka and shouted, "You are Naruto, right?" Boom. It was as if thunder had struck. "Iruka, teacher, don't you know how to read my eyes? Can't you see that I'm hinting at you not to expose me?" Hinata's eyes widened in surprise as she stared blankly at Iruka, who was surrounded by all the girls. Tian, Sakura Haruno, and Ino Yamanaka all turned their heads in unison. Their faces were pitch black, and their eyes were scarlet. They were already rubbing their fists. "Naruto," Sakura Haruno rolled up her sleeves, then, clang, bam, clang. At #yen%, and after 5 minutes of punches, Naruto died, and his soul floated out with the whites of his eyes. After the farce, Iruka took out a huge blueprint from his storage scroll and hung it on the blackboard. He pointed at the blueprint and said, "This is the location of the second exam, practice field number 44. Those who pass the first exam will occupy the field on the left side of the river. Those who fail the first exam will occupy the field on the right side of the river." There are two types of scrolls hidden in the two exam grounds, scrolls of heaven and scrolls of earth. Your first task is to find the scrolls in the respective exam grounds. After you find the scrolls, jump across the river and steal the opponent's scrolls. The team that gathers the scrolls of heaven and scrolls of earth will reach the tower in the middle of the exam grounds. You will be the final victor. I must say that this river will be sealed off for the first 3 days of the exam. It will only be opened on the 4th day, and the exam will end on the 5th day. Also, you only have 1 day to search for the scrolls. Once the time is up, the scrolls that are not found will all lose their effect. The exam format changed. Was this change good or bad? They had to find the scrolls first. This should be a test of their scouting ability. Then they had to jump across the river. If he were to jump across the river, the difficulty he would face would be unimaginable. It was a scene where a team would face all the enemies. This was what Ibiki said. Even though they knew it was impossible, they still had to complete it. Only, this time it was no longer an armchair strategist. Iruka put away the map. Originally, this was what the examiner for the second exam informed you. However, there was a problem with the examiner for the second exam, so I am here to inform you in place of it. Iruka's gaze swept across everyone and finally landed on Naruto. This exam requires you to sign a life or death agreement. If you don't have the courage to face death, then don't make an irreversible decision. This sentence, Iruka Lauscher said it to me. Naruto was very clear in his heart. Iruka put away the map and sighed. The exam is tomorrow. When the time comes, you will have to gather in this classroom. Someone will bring you to the exam grounds. Today, I hope that everyone will seriously think about it. This exam in the past years is the most difficult exam. After Iruka Lauscher finished speaking, he said to Naruto, "Naruto, come with me." Naruto gestured for Sasuke and Hinata to follow him. They followed Iruka and left. After leaving, Iruka brought Naruto and the other two to the office. There were quite a few people in the office. Iruka thought for a moment and brought Naruto and the others to a separate empty room. "Iruka Lauscher, do you have anything to say?" Naruto looked at Iruka, who had a nervous expression and was in a state of panic, and asked. Iruka took a deep breath and said seriously, "Naruto, give up on this exam. You are still young. You are not ready to be promoted to Chunin yet. You can wait for another year, just like the 3 students in Metkai's class. After cultivating for a year, you can take the exam to be promoted to Chunin." Naruto laughed. If Lauscher Kakashi hears that you instigated his students, he will definitely flip the table. This was originally a joke, but unexpectedly, Kakashi came out of the window and said coldly, "Naruto, you are right this time. But it is not as simple as flipping the table. I want to teach Iruka a lesson." Iruka heard Kakashi's voice and suddenly turned around. He said loudly, "They are not ready. You will destroy them." Kakashi's face darkened. "Iruka, I said it. They're no longer your students. They are now my subordinates." Naruto smiled at Lauscher Iruka and said, "Don't worry, we will definitely complete the mission alive." Iruka turned around. Naruto, please don't worry." Iruka sighed and patted Naruto's shoulder. "You have grown." Then he left the classroom. When the door closed, Naruto was full of pleading and looked at Kakashi pitifully. "Lauscher Kakashi, can we really not give up on the exam?" Kakashi was still smiling, but when he heard this, his face suddenly darkened. What did he mean by being handsome for less than 3 seconds? This guy in front of him was a real-life teaching material. Zap zap. The electric arc danced, and Naruto finally succumbed in the trembling dance. He opened his mouth and spat out a black smoke. "Okay, since that is the case, let's write a battle plan." Serious face. Chapter 76. In the classroom, Naruto held a piece of chalk in both hands, one on the left and the other on the right. Like a printing machine, he quickly drew the map of practice field 44. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Hinata stood in front of the blackboard, staring blankly like primary school students. After Naruto finished drawing the map, he pointed to the left and said, "This is our test field. Halfway through his sentence, Naruto stopped and asked in confusion, "You guys, what's with that expression? Is there something wrong?" Kakashi spoke first. "How did you draw the map of practice field 44 so skillfully?" Naruto pointed to the map and said, "Oh, you're talking about this. Just now, when teacher Iruka was explaining tomorrow's test mode to us, he took out this map. I felt that it would be useful, so I memorized it." Kakashi said in disbelief, "You memorized it just by looking at it?" Naruto nodded. "Yes, it's quite simple." "Simple?" Kakashi's heart was pricked. "Alright, go on." Naruto pointed to the map again and said, "Because of me, there are 5 very strong teams standing opposite us. But for us, this is also an advantage in the early stage." Naruto pointed to the river in the middle. "This river will be blocked for 3 days. If we really can't communicate with each other during these 3 days, then the 5 teams will inevitably have internal friction because of the scrolls. And we can conserve our strength on this side of the river during this period." Kakashi interrupted. "Practice Field 44 is also known as the Forest of Death. Not only are there ferocious beasts, but there are also a lot of exotic flowers and plants. Most of them are highly toxic and hallucinogenic, so if we want to survive here for 3 days, it won't be easy." Naruto laughed. "With Hinata's supercilious eyes in this map, I think even if we can't find a place without beasts, we can still clean up a place without beasts. As for the exotic flowers and plants..." Naruto pointed to his head. "I've already memorized the entire plant dictionary. Although I can't guarantee that every plant is in the dictionary, it's easy to distinguish which ones are edible and which ones are poisonous." The entire plant dictionary? Kakashi remembered the first time he went to Naruto's house for a free meal. He picked up a very thick book from the ground. Naruto actually memorized such a thick book? Kakashi looked at the map on the blackboard and then looked at Naruto. "Monster." Naruto rolled his eyes and continued, "With Hinata's supercilious eyes, searching for the scroll shouldn't be a problem for us. So the first stage of the mission should be very simple for us. The difficult part is the second stage, crossing the river. Because once we cross the river, we'll be like a piece of fat meat thrown into a pack of wolves. We'll definitely be targeted by all the teams." Sasuke and Hinata nodded, agreeing with Naruto's analysis. Naruto knocked the chalk on the blackboard and suddenly said, "Then what if we don't cross the river? When the enemy comes, the situation will be reversed. We'll take the initiative from being passive." Hinata's eyes lit up, and she said happily, "Then the problem is solved." Kakashi poured cold water on her at the right time. "I'm sure others can think of the option of not crossing the river." Naruto smiled and said, "Of course, it's just that before the 5-day exam ends, we can't be in a stalemate. Plus, there will definitely be people who think they're better than us who will jump out." Naruto pointed at himself as he said, "I'm sure there will be many people who want to beat me up." Kakashi, Sasuke, Hinata. No one else had this kind of confidence. It was clearly a tragic thing, but he said it so proudly. That's right. In the end, Naruto concluded, the strategy for this exam is to set up camp, set up traps, and wait for the prey to come. Set up traps again? Why did he have to use the word again? Kakashi thought of some bad things. That was the qualification test before the formation of Class 7. And he was tricked by Naruto's trap. And the damned self-destructing clone. That was godly. Buzz buzz. An arc of lightning rose from Kakashi's body and struck toward Naruto. The conditions were good, and an ice wall immediately rose up to block Kakashi's arc of lightning. Because there were no conductors like copper wires nearby, Naruto channeled the electricity into Sasuke's body. Sasuke reacted quickly, and immediately used his own lightning attribute to offset it. Sasuke glared at Naruto, and Naruto glared at Kakashi. Naruto grumbled. "Teacher Kakashi, can you tell me how I angered you this time? You shocked me with electricity again." Make Kakashi reveal his dark history? How was that possible? He ignored Naruto's resentful gaze and changed the topic. "Well, since you guys have already made sufficient preparations and plans, then I don't have to worry. I still have some other things to do." Naruto interrupted him halfway. "Wait, we still have something to ask Teacher Kakashi for help." Kakashi looked over listlessly. What is it? Naruto. Regarding the matter of setting traps, only Sasuke and I know a little bit. I want to ask you to give us some pointers. Teach Naruto how to set traps? Although he enjoyed Naruto's humble attitude, but he felt that teaching this technique to Naruto wasn't a wise choice. Who knows when this trap might fall on him again? Kakashi hesitated. Naruto rummaged through his pocket and took out a book. Of course, we won't let Kakashi-sensei teach us for free. This is a collector's edition of Intimate Paradise that I found for Kakashi-sensei. There are only 50 copies in the entire ninja world, and it even has the author's autograph. Before he could finish his words, when the world's limited edition of 50 copies of Intimate Paradise, with a gilded seal appeared in Naruto's hands, Kakashi snatched it in the next second. There was no need to say how much he liked it. As for how Naruto obtained the collector's edition of Intimate Paradise, there were only 50 copies in the world. It was all thanks to the store manager's bookshelf. Well, Naruto got it from the store manager. When the store manager saw Naruto staring at the book, he smiled strangely, and then said that he could take it if he liked it, and gave Naruto a "I understand" look. At that time, Naruto wanted to smash the book on the store manager's head, but thinking that Kakashi liked this book very much, he took the opportunity to take it. Now it was just the right time to present Buddha with borrowed flowers. Naruto already had a card up his sleeve, and said with a smile, Kakashi-sensei, do you agree? Kakashi carefully flipped through the book, as if he was protecting his little wife. Since it was a collector's edition, it was certainly not called a collector's edition, just because there were more signatures. There were also many exquisite illustrations that the ordinary edition didn't have. He replied casually, it's a small matter, a small matter. Naruto smiled and leaned over. That, Kakashi-sensei, for the sake of the book, you can call me less in the future. Kakashi looked at the book intently and nodded. Well, I can consider it. As long as you don't seek death, I generally don't bother to call you. Chapter 78. P.S. The previous chapter 77 was sent to the wrong person. Please reread it. Chunan's second exam. On the day of the exam, all the students who passed the first exam were gathered in front of the west gate of exam room 44. Today, the sky was clear and cloudless. The azure blue sky was clear and high. A gentle breeze blew past, bringing with it the fragrance of flowers. It was either strong or light, but it was refreshing. Today was a good day. Hiking, and having a picnic. However, Naruto couldn't calm down. He looked at the locked gate that led to the endless forest with a serious expression. Near the trees in the forest, there were a few low shrubs. Further in, there were extremely tall trees with luxuriant foliage and layers of secrets. The thick foliage blocked out the sunlight, making it seem like there was no end to it. The wind blew past and blew at the signboard on the iron gate that read, "Would leave restricted area, no entry." The signboard was blown by the wind, and the rusty iron door made a creak sound. Goosebumps rose all over his body. The person standing in front of the signboard was Ibiki. Because the students entered from the east and west gates, they entered from two different entrances. Mitarashi Red Bean was in charge of the east gate. The west gate lacked people, so Ibiki took over. She wore a black headscarf, a black coat and black gloves. With a hideous scar on her face, Ibiki, who was shrouded in darkness, made Naruto feel a little apprehensive. He didn't know if it was just his imagination, but Naruto felt that Ibiki would occasionally glance at him. Moreover, her gaze was filled with negative emotions. Naruto communicated with Nine Tails in his mind. Nine Llamas, sensei, that Ibiki doesn't have any intentions of killing me, right? Nine Tails listlessly replied, I don't feel anything. Naruto relaxed slightly. Then Nine Tails gasped for breath and said, but even if she doesn't have any intentions of killing you, it wouldn't be surprising if you were beaten up. Naruto gulped. Get beaten up by Ibiki? Naruto consoled himself that he would use shadow clone technique whenever he saw Ibiki in the future. Thinking about it, he should be able to escape. Feeling that this was a good idea, Naruto immediately formed a seal. Multiple shadow clone technique. Bang, bang, bang. More than 10 Narutos appeared around him. For a moment, Naruto felt much safer. As for the others, they looked over with strange gazes. The exam hasn't even started yet. Why is this guy already using ninjutsu? Ibiki was one of them. Ibiki glanced at Naruto, who had suddenly appeared, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Thinking back to the day when a pile of Naruto fell from the top floor of the ninja's office like dumplings. That day Mitsubishi Red Bean was furious. As a jonin, in front of Sandame Naruto he couldn't do anything to a genin, no matter who it was he wouldn't feel good. Ibiki looked at the time. Finally she said, "Time's up. I'll give you 1 minute to hand over the food you prepared. If you don't hand it over, once you're discovered by us, you'll be disqualified from the exam." Among them, soldier food pills are also included. Each team can bring at most 3 soldier food pills. Can't bring food without permission? Hinata and Sasuke looked at Naruto. Naruto nodded and said, "Hand over the food." At this time, a group of ninjas appeared out of nowhere, holding bags in their hands, and walked towards each team. Naruto looked at these people. They all looked the same, and it was obvious that they were shadow clone techniques. At the same time, Naruto noticed that there was a butterfly on each ninja's shoulder. A minute later, the ninjas who were searching for food disappeared. Only a group of butterflies was left. The butterflies circled around each team. Scouting for food? One of the teams suddenly threw the paper tube containing the soldier food pills on the ground. The butterflies flew around 3 times and then scattered. Ibiki looked at the one who threw the soldier food pills and nodded. "At least you know what's good for you." Then Ibiki continued to explain. "I believe that Iruka has informed you of everything that needs to be said yesterday. The next step is to sign the life and death agreement. You have 1 day to think about it. Since you're here, I believe that you're all mentally prepared. You have 2 minutes to sign the life and death agreement and hand it to me." The ninjas who left earlier appeared again. They were divided into 12 people, each holding a life and death agreement and pen, and handed it to each team. In the meantime, Ibiki added, "The distance from here to your final destination is 10 kilometers in a straight line. You have 5 days. For the first 3 days, the river between the east and west will be blocked. In other words, you have to survive in your own area for 3 days. I have to remind you that there are many unexpected dangers in this forest. If you don't want to die suddenly, you have to be careful. Also, the date to find the scrolls is the first day after you enter the exam site. To be precise, it's 24 hours. After 24 hours, the scrolls that haven't been found will be invalid. Everyone please hurry up." Naruto rolled his eyes after hearing this. The first sentence told them to be careful, and the second sentence urged them to hurry up. TSK, how sinister. Ibiki turned around and took out the key to open the locked iron door. Creak, 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 creak. Ibiki opened the iron door and said, "Time's up. You can enter the exam site." Naruto's doppelganger shouted, "Transformation technique." There were originally 10 or so Naruto. At this moment, 1/3 of them became Sasuke, and the other 1/3 became Hinata. In the end, there were 4 Naruto teams in the exam site. The Naruto shouted, "Let's go." Mini Naruto led Sasuke and Hinata through the door. After entering for a while, they split into 4 directions and dispersed. Ibiki looked at Naruto's back and couldn't help but praise. Although this kid is messing around, he's quite smart. At this moment, a voice in the dark said angrily in Ibiki's ear, "Are you praising him? Then which team should I go after? I'm not good at shadow doppelganger." Ibiki was stunned, and the smile on his face grew wider. He knew that the person talking to him was the invigilator in charge of recording the exam site. Ibiki said to the air, "Go after any team first. The doppelganger won't last long anyway. Once it disappears, you can search again. It shouldn't be hard for you." There was a cold snort in the air, and then there was silence. They could only feel a strong wind blowing, and the leaves rustling more loudly. Naruto's team was the first to enter, and then the other 11 teams entered one after another. After everyone entered, Ibiki locked the big iron door again. "Naruto, I'm really looking forward to his performance." They entered the forest of death. Naruto took out a scroll and gave it to Sasuke. If I'm not here, you can open this scroll. Sasuke frowned and accepted it, puzzled. What do you mean you're not here? That Naruto grinned. Guess. Sasuke's face darkened. Naruto turned to Hinata and said, Hinata, use Supernova to see if there are any other teams following us. Hinata activated Supernova. No, the closest team is 500 meters away from us. They're moving away from us. Naruto nodded. What about the others? Is there anyone who isn't an examinee? For example, an invigilator? Hinata replied. No, there are no outsiders within 500 meters. Naruto nodded and raised his hand, releasing the doppelgangers that went in other directions. Then Naruto turned to Sasuke and asked, Have you guessed it? Electric arcs flowed on Sasuke's body, and his meaning was obvious. Naruto quickly raised his hand. Don't be impulsive. Don't be impulsive. Now open the scroll I gave you. Open it now? Didn't Naruto say that he wouldn't do it later? Wait. Sasuke's eyes suddenly widened, and he was about to speak, but Naruto raised his hand and put it in front of his mouth, signaling him to be quiet. Sasuke quickly opened the scroll Naruto gave him before. It said, When you see this scroll, the one standing in front of you should be my doppelganger. My main body should have successfully sneaked into another examination room. Wish me success. If I succeed, our great cause will not be far from success. In the dense forest on the east side of the examination room, 3 people dressed as Amigakure ninjas looked to the west and said in a voice that only they could hear, The great cause will be successful. Chapter 79. P.S. The previous Chapter 77 at 13 o'clock was sent incorrectly. Please reread Chapter 77. West side of the examination room. Sasuke opened the scroll and continued to read. When you see this scroll, the one standing in front of you should be my clone. My main body should have successfully sneaked into another examination room. Wish me success. If I succeed, our great cause will not be far from success. Before getting down to business, please forgive me for acting on my own initiative. I didn't tell you in advance, mainly because I was afraid of the news leaking out. In this plan, I will get the Scroll of the Earth in another examination room. What you have to do is to protect my clone and prevent him from participating in the battle under the premise of getting the Scroll of the Earth. As long as he doesn't participate in the battle, the clone can survive until the 3rd day. If he participates in the battle, you have to make sure he doesn't disappear. The way to do it is to use your chakra to maintain the clone. Believe me, the second method will be a huge drag on you. So it is the best choice to not let him participate in the battle. For how to not let the clone participate in the battle, I have a proposal here. You can adopt it. First, rely on Hinata's Byakugan to search all the scrolls. Then choose a team with good combat power to take the initiative to make friends with the scrolls, and gather a group of people. Continue to choose a stronghold according to the original plan, and set up a large number of traps. Setting up traps can let the gathered people participate, and tell them our original plan to ambush the other side. After 3 days of the exam, release the news that Naruto is here. Some people on the east side will not sit still, and you will leave at this time and meet me at the destination of the exam. This is the real strategy one thought of for this exam. The plan needs to pay attention to that the ninja of Audiobook can be identified as the enemy. If you meet them, don't trade with them. Kill them all directly at the fastest speed. Secondly, be careful of another team, the team led by Wood Leaf Ninja Yakushi Kabuto. But this team can make a deal and tell Yakushi Kabuto our plan to ambush the ninja on the other side. But don't tell him that our real plan is not only this team. This plan is only known to the 3 of us. Don't even let the invigilator know about it. The following is the specific information of the 2 teams. The 3 ninjas of Audiobook are good at controlling sound waves to make people lose their balance. The strongest person of the 3, Toseki. Appearance features, face wrapped in bandages. Ability, piercing sound. Using the multi-hole gauntlet on his right hand to create an ear-piercing sound wave to attack his opponent, he could even paralyze his opponent's auditory nerves. Saker Stirrups. Appearance characteristics: hair standing straight, clothes with the word death, or possibly changed clothes. Ability: air slashing wave. 100% air pressure and 0% ultrasonic waves were ejected from the wind cave on his hand. Chakra's invisible air pressure attack could also be used to reflect the opponent's attack. Air slashing extreme wave. Enhanced version of air slashing wave. 100% air pressure and 100% supersonic waves are emitted from the hand's wind cave. Jean Hammer. Appearance: a woman with long flowing hair. She's easy to distinguish. After all, she's the only female in the team. Abilities: Simben Bell. The ninja tool she uses the sound of the bell to disturb the opponent's hearing, and takes the opportunity to attack with Senbon. The sound waves emitted by the bell could also damage the opponent's auditory organs to a certain extent, which was similar to the spell Ring Pierce, used by DOS. Medicine Master Pocket's team. Yakushi Kabuto. Originally a powerful medical ninja. Red copper armor. Chakra's absorption technique. Can absorb the opponent's chakra by touching them. Kinmei Chung. Soft body transformation. Every part of the body can be softened and freely stretched to attack the opponent. Attached photos of 6 people. Remember the faces of these people. And remember the corresponding abilities. Once someone's ability is different from the one I introduced, I'm afraid there will be other disguises mixed in. At that time, it's the most dangerous. Be alert and stay away. Seeing the last word. The whole scroll burst into flames and turned into ashes in 3 seconds. Naruto's avatar smiled and said, "I hope you all remember the things on it." Sasuke looked at Naruto's avatar and rolled his eyes. "I don't know how Kakashi-sensei would feel if he knew you did this." At the same time in the East Exam Hall, Naruto disguised as 3-Rain Ninja climbed a tall tree. He moved continuously on the tree, and went deep into the forest of death. 5 minutes later, the fog stopped. Naruto took out a stone the size of 2 fists, and threw it under the tree. After the stone fell on the ground, it slowly began to sink. It was a swamp. Naruto put the half-blue and half-purple leaf in his mouth, chewed a few times and swallowed it. Then he continued to go deeper. So. 3 shurikens attacked the 3-Rain Ninja disguised as Naruto. Naruto sneered. "Finally can't help but make a move? I thought you would be more careful. Then I wouldn't have to make a move." Naruto flexibly avoided the 3 shurikens and raised his hand. At the same time, 3 Sannin ninjas hiding in the canopy appeared behind them. The next moment, with a poochie sound, without waiting for them to react, the ice directly pierced their cervical vertebrae. The cervical vertebrae were pierced, and the central nervous system was completely destroyed. The 3 people's bodies softened and were about to fall. Immediately afterward, the 3-Rain Ninja disguised as Naruto appeared beside the 3 corpses and picked them up. After stripping the 3 of their clothes and equipment, they threw them under the tree. The 3 corpses fell into the swamp and began to sink at a speed visible to the naked eye. The swamp rose and fell, and there seemed to be other creatures moving through it. The poisonous swamp is really a good place to kill and bury corpses. Naruto, disguised as an Amigakure ninja, smiled. He discovered in advance that these 3 people were secretly following him, so he deliberately brought them here. If these people could still be calm and continue to follow, Naruto wouldn't have to do anything, and these people would be poisoned to death. The 3-Rain Ninja disguised as Naruto took off their clothes and equipment, and threw them into the swamp where the 3 corpses were. They changed into the new clothes and equipment. Transformation Jutsu. The 3-Rain Ninja became 3 Sannin ninjas. I don't know if the identity of Sannin can be taken care of by my love a little bit. Well, my love can't do much, but Hanbao and Kankuro shouldn't let my love kill their own village's ninjas. Naruto, who transformed into Sannin, grinned. Then he took out a storage scroll and unlocked the seal. 3 corpses appeared. Naruto's clone dragged the 3 corpses and threw them into the swamp. These 3-Rain Ninja were secretly killed by Naruto a day before the exam. Today he used their identities to sneak into the exam room. Fortunately, the entrances of the East and West exam rooms were close to the Middle River, and the distance was less than 1 kilometer. Otherwise, Naruto's body wouldn't be able to reach the East exam room from the West exam room in 5 minutes. As for why he took their equipment and clothes, it was mainly because the transformation jutsu itself was flawed. It can't be seen at first glance, but if a careful person observes carefully, they will find that the material of the clothes is different from the real thing. Now that Naruto and his clone are wearing real clothes, it can cover some of the flaws. Now let's confirm whether the river is really blocked. How is it blocked? Chapter 80. Hey, can someone help me? There's a zipper at the back of this shirt. It's falling down. After changing his clothes, Naruto was about to leave when he heard a female voice behind him. He turned around and saw that it was his clone that had transformed into a female ninja named Sanin. At this moment, her clothes were half open, and her peaks were in full view. Naruto subconsciously raised his hand, pressed it, and grabbed it. He sighed and said, "It's quite realistic." The clone was furious. He punched the head of the main body and shouted angrily, "Pervert! If you want to touch it, do it yourself." Naruto. At the same time, Nine Tails in Naruto's body said playfully, "You have quite the unique taste. Touching yourself?" Naruto was embarrassed. Actually, I'm just a little curious." Naruto had been curious for a long time. He was curious about the feeling of the clone after it turned into a woman. He helped the clone zip up the back. "By the way, Sensei Nine Llamas, there's something I've been wanting to ask for a long time." Nine Tails yawned and replied, "What is it?" Naruto identified the direction and asked as he hurried, "Sensei Nine Llamas, can you feel everything I see, hear, and feel?" Nine Tails replied, "As long as the mental link is there, I can feel what you feel." "Mental link? Then what is that?" Naruto didn't understand and asked, "Then our link is always there?" Nine Tails, "Yes." Naruto asked uncertainly, "Then what I think?" Nine Tails, "I can't directly read your thoughts. I need your consent to know. Just like every time you call me, I can only hear you if you take the initiative to communicate with me." "Is that so?" Naruto heaved a sigh of relief. If he knew everything, it would be more embarrassing than walking naked on the street. However, although thoughts could not be directly read, sharing touch, vision, and hearing was sometimes very annoying. If he were to go on a date with Hinata in the future, and he was chatting ambiguously with Hinata, the stupid fox would suddenly interrupt and ruin the atmosphere. This was still considered light. If their relationship was better, it would escalate from holding hands to kissing. With a fox standing by the side, would it be a kiss or not? This was considered a light punishment. After all, she was shy the first time and familiar with the second time. If she kissed him a few more times, she would be able to remain calm in the eyes of tens of thousands of people on the street. If, when they enter home plate, Naruto felt that no matter how open-minded he was, he wouldn't be open-minded enough to broadcast it live. Therefore, he had to figure out how the mental link was broken. "Teacher Nine Llamas, how can I break the mental link?" Nine Tails' tone was playful. "You want to know?" Naruto nodded repeatedly and said affirmatively, "I want to know." Nine Tails, "Alright then, you'll know after I break it once. See you tomorrow." It was broken just like that? Naruto didn't have time to refuse, but in the next second, Naruto suddenly felt his whole body relaxed. That feeling was indescribable. It was as if his tense mind had suddenly relaxed. F***ck. It can't be. The connection was broken just like that. Naruto's relaxed mind suddenly became alert again. This was Chunin's exam. Just when he needed to use Nine Tails. Why did Nine Tails suddenly go offline? Naruto stopped on a thick branch of a tree trunk and closed his eyes, wanting to enter Nine Tails' sealed space. However, the sealed space that he could enter as long as he wanted to in the past was completely undetectable this time. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't enter. The mental link. It was really broken. Naruto looked up at the sky. "My liver hurts. What's going on?" Nine Tails' sealed space. Nine Tails grinned with his snow-white teeth and smiled happily. After a long time, he said to himself, "Sanin's human pillar force is nearby. If I keep contacting Shikaku, that guy will definitely feel it. Although Shikaku's personality is not likely to tell this to human Pillar Force, it's still broken. Naruto didn't take the initiative to devour souls after killing people twice. It seems that his promise is still credible. If that's the case, I can help him more in the future. After the mental link was broken, the sealed space was quiet. Ninetales found a comfortable position to lie down. He decided to have a rare good sleep. Outside, Naruto sighed after finding that he couldn't contact Ninetales. Let's go, let's continue on our way. The sky was going to rain, and the mother was going to marry. Ninetales didn't buy it. What could he do? He could only let him be. This stupid fox. Idiot. Idiot. While rushing, Naruto cursed endlessly. He didn't stop until he was out of the range of the fog. Without the natural barrier of the poisonous fog, Naruto cautiously rushed for a while. Finally, he arrived at the place where the river was. The river wasn't too wide, only 50 meters in length. The water flow wasn't fast and was very gentle. After lurking for more than 10 minutes, and seeing that there were no other changes in the surroundings, Naruto picked up a stone and threw it to the other side of the river. The stone flew over the river and suddenly became slow. Then, with a crash, it instantly disintegrated and turned into sand sprinkled in the river. There was a barrier above the river. Naruto continued to test the water attribute of chakra. Naruto raised his hand. Under normal circumstances, the river should resonate with chakra and float according to Naruto's will. But the river didn't respond to Naruto at all, and continued to flow quietly. There was also a barrier in the water. Naruto raised his hand and condensed an icicle, then shot it against the shore into the river. The icicle didn't touch the river, and disintegrated like the previous stone. It seems that this is a real blockade. Naruto nodded. Since the two examination rooms can't be connected, the next task is to find the Scroll of the Earth. If he can find the Scroll of the Earth on the first day, then quietly hide for 3 days until the blockade is lifted, they can quietly complete the task without anyone noticing. However, there is still a variable here, and that is Orochimaru. Naruto mentioned it in the scroll he gave to Sasuke. He asked Sasuke to remember the strength and appearance of the 6 people. Once he finds something different from the information, he must be careful of someone disguised among them. Naruto was afraid that Orochimaru would disguise himself as Otogekyure's ninja or Kabuto's ninja in less than 3 days. Otogekyure's ninja and Kabuto are both Orochimaru's men. If Orochimaru wants to enter the West exam room, it's the simplest thing to do. If Orochimaru finds Sasuke now and puts a curse on Sasuke, then in a short time, Sasuke's combat power will be abolished. At that time, in the West exam room, there will only be Hinata and a clone of chakra left. In this case, it's difficult to protect Sasuke, who has lost his combat power. The whole plan may collapse because of this. In short, it's a gamble. Bet that Orochimaru is not in the West exam room. Bet that even if Orochimaru is in the West exam room, Hinata can keep a scroll of the earth. So where is Orochimaru now? Chapter 81. 6 hours after Chunin's second exam, West Exam Hall. Hinata used Byakugan to lead the way while Sasuke and Naruto's doppelganger followed closely behind. In the past 6 hours, they had avoided all the teams and almost all the beasts. Unless they had no choice, they wouldn't fight. After 5 minutes, Hinata stopped. The scroll is in the bear cave ahead. There's a brown bear and 5 1-meter-long baby bears in the cave. Should we lure the brown bear out or sneak in directly? Naruto's doppelganger said. My suggestion is to burn the snake rot grass we got earlier. The poisonous smoke can quietly kill all the creatures in the cave before we go in. There's no need to start a fight. Hinata turned off Byakugan and pouted unhappily. That will make the little bear die too. Naruto's doppelganger replied. If we find the butterfly shiitake mushroom, burning it can make the bear fall asleep. Hinata's cheeks puffed up. But I didn't see the pink shiitake mushroom with legs that you mentioned. Naruto's doppelganger replied. If you can't find the butterfly shiitake mushroom, you can use the blue frog's juice. Just as Hinata was about to say that she didn't see the blue frog, Sasuke interrupted her. Hinata, let Naruto talk less so that he can save energy. Leave this scroll to me. You guys just stay here and guard it. Hinata immediately turned on Byakugan and started to look around. 2 minutes later, Sasuke successfully brought back the scroll hidden in the snake cave. Sasuke said, "This is the 6th scroll. Hinata, how long can your Byakugan last?" Hinata turned off Byakugan and replied, "I can still hold on." At this moment, Naruto's doppelganger raised his hand and wiped the sweat off Hinata's forehead. "Hinata, you're tired." Hinata was speechless. Her heart was deeply struck by this simple action and sentence. Sasuke's mouth was half open. He looked at the dull Naruto's clone, and then at Hinata, who was suddenly looking at her toes shyly. What should he sigh about? Naruto's doppelganger could also flirt with girls? Or was it because Hinata was easily embarrassed? Cough cough. Sasuke cleared his throat. Hinata, use your supercilious eyes to look around and see if there are any scrolls nearby. Hinata activated her supercilious eyes and scanned the area. There are no more scrolls within 2 kilometers. Sasuke nodded. Let's move forward another 2 kilometers. Today's mission is to find as many scrolls as possible. Tomorrow, Hinata can have a good rest. Hinata? Okay. So they continued on their way. After 6 hours, Hinata found 6 scrolls. As for Naruto himself, he still hadn't found a single one. No, to be precise, he found one. But that scroll was in someone else's hands at this time. On a very tall tree trunk, Naruto, who had transformed into Sannin, was hugging the top of the tree. His body swayed along with the tree, swaying in the sky. When the wind was stronger, the swaying was more intense. When the wind was weaker, the swaying was slower. For the first time, Naruto discovered that he was actually a little afraid of heights. His little heart trembled along with the swaying of the tree trunk. At the same time, he used his ears to listen to the sounds under the tree. In order to hear more clearly, Naruto opened the first gate of Hashimantanku. Under the tree, Tian was a little worried about Ningji. "Ningji, you should rest your supercilious eyes. It's too much of a burden for you to keep them on." Hinata Ningji looked around suspiciously and said, "I feel like we're being followed." Shaoli, who was wearing a green tights and a sweet potato hat on his head, jumped on a high branch and looked around. "Is there? I don't see anything." Hyuga's supercilious eyes scanned the surroundings again, and then deactivated it. "Maybe I'm too nervous." Shaoli jumped down from the tree like a monkey. "Then what should we do next? Should we continue to search for scrolls?" Hinata Ningji put the scroll in his hand into his ninja tool bag. "1 scroll is enough. Let's find a place to rest and prepare food. After all, we have to stay here for 3 days." So the 3 of them got up and began to look for a suitable place to spend the night. Naruto jumped from the top of a tree to the top of another tree. Listening to the sound, he fell far behind Ninji's team. 10 minutes later, Ninji's team stopped next to a lake. Ningji pointed to the lake in front of them and said, "There are a lot of fish in this lake, so we can solve the problem of water and food." Shaoli's thick eyebrows rose as soon as he heard this, and his round eyes locked on the lake. He jumped and stepped on the water, holding a kunai in his hand, intending to stab a fish. In the distance, Naruto swayed in the wind. He swayed until it was dark. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. Bang! A Sannin ninja clone of Naruto appeared under Naruto's body, and then slid down the trunk. Transformation jutsu. Naruto in Sannin ninja form turned into a rolling 1-meter-long panda. Then they sneakily approached the river. The river was dark, and there was no bonfire. There was only a tent. The panda lay in the grass, reached into its body, and then took out a big pink mushroom. The mushroom was very magical, and it was still struggling in the claw of the clone, like a small animal. Naruto's clone exerted force in its bare claw. Crack! The pink mushroom's mushroom head was broken off. The mushroom's body stiffened, and then it struggled desperately, but in the end, it was stuffed back into the panda's body. Putting the pink mushroom head on the ground, the panda took out a lighter from its body, and then lit the mushroom head. The mushroom head burned fiercely when it came in contact with the fire, emitting light pink smoke. The smoke was carried by the wind and drifted down to the tents below. The first stage of the plan succeeded. The panda clone raised its hand, and its eyes were fixed on the grass around it. This was the task given to it by the main body. Observe the direction of the wind. The task clearly stated that if the direction of the wind changed, it had to follow the direction of the wind and repeat the first stage of the mission. 10 minutes passed, and the direction of the wind didn't change. The panda clone began to crawl forward and wriggled closer to the tent. A person was sitting cross-legged outside the tent. It was Hinata Ninji who was on night duty. The panda immediately lay down, but Hinata Ninji didn't respond. The panda got up again, walked 5 meters forward, and then lay down. Before it could react, the panda moved in front of Hinata Ninji. This guy fell asleep. The next step was to find the scroll of earth. Because Hinata Ninji was right in front of it, the panda decided to start with Hinata Ninji. It only took a minute to find the scroll of earth. The last step, retreat. After stuffing the scroll of earth into its body, the panda began to run. It's big but moved extremely fast, like a small electric motor of a Shiba Inu. Success! When Naruto, who had transformed into a Sannin ninja, held the scroll of earth in his hand, the excitement in his heart couldn't be described in words. It seemed that the shaking on the tree during the day was worth it. Thank you, brother-in-law Ninji, for the scroll. I will remember this kindness. Naruto's face was already smiling like a flower. Since you have Byakugan, it won't be difficult for you to find another scroll, right? Find another scroll? Why did he have to find another scroll? Naruto looked at the scroll of earth in his hand, and suddenly thought of a new idea. Then he took out a pile of scrolls from his body. There were storage scrolls, replication scrolls, special scrolls that stored explosive charms, and all kinds of other scrolls. Finally, he found a scroll that was about the same thickness and weight as the scroll of earth. Then he began to modify it, and after 5 minutes, a scroll of earth, that was exactly the same as the real one, was born. Naruto looked at the scroll of earth that he made and laughed even more wildly. Hee, I'm really a genius. I replaced the real scroll with a fake one, so you can rest assured in the second round of the exam. Thinking that he didn't have to meet Ninji in the third round, Naruto laughed even more sincerely. Then he quietly approached Ninji's camp. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.